You are listening to the Game Developers Radio at GameDevRadio.net. On today's show, I've set up a conference call with a collection of Flash game designers, and for about 2 hours, we cover a wide range of topics dealing with how to design a good Flash game and just thoughts on game design in general. Although the audio is not perfect, it is well worth a listen for anyone interested in learning how to design a Flash game. Things do start off a bit slow, and we do manage to get off topic here and there, but the tangents are well worth it. So sit back, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Code Monkey, get up, get coffee. Code Monkey, go to job. Code Monkey, have boring meeting with boring manager Rob. Rob say Code Monkey very diligent, but his output stink. His code not functional or elegant. What do Code Monkey think? Code Monkey think maybe manager wanna write goddamn login page himself. Code Monkey not say it out loud. Code Monkey not crazy, just proud. Code Monkey likes Fritos. Code Monkey likes town.
Hey, I'm Ryan Creighton. I'm the president and founder of Untold Entertainment Inc. And we're currently working on Interrupting Cow Trivia, Inflatable Zombies, and Cahoots.
Awesome. And I have Iain.
Hi, I'm Iain Lobb. I'm a freelance developer. I have my little company, which is just me. But for 4.5 years, I was at an agency called Block, where I did a whole bunch of games like Stackopolis, Zwok, Pop Pirates, and Metaforce.
Very nice. And I have Daniel.
Hello, I'm Daniel Cook. I run LostGarden.com. Latest Flash game is Bunny, along with a fellow named Andre Spearings, who did all the lovely programming. Yeah.
Awesome. And we have Edmund.
I'm Edmund McMillen, independent Flash video game guy. I've done a lot of games. Most people know me from Gish, Meat Boy, Gray Matter, Coil, Ether, Timefuck, Spewer, and so on.
Hey, Edmund, it's great to hear you're out of the hospital.
Yeah, it's great to be out of the hospital.
And Dan, it's great to hear you're out of prison.
There's a first time for everything.
All right. Well, to start this off, I guess probably one of the first things when it comes to just doing game design and Flash games is that it's pretty different in how you want to design a game for a console. Because so many people who play web games, they have really short attention spans. And if you don't pull them in in the first 10 seconds, they kind of just move on to the next great thing. I mean, what are your thoughts on that particular topic? What kind of things can you do to pull in a person as soon as they start playing the game? How about Edmund? How about you?
Well, I'd say the main reason why Flash games aren't as in depth as console games is because it's a usual good rule of thumb not to spend more than a couple months on a Flash game. Because after that, it's just not going to be profitable in the slightest. A game that you do in a month or 2 months versus 5 months, you're going to end up making about the same amount of money almost always. So I think that's another reason. What was that?
Depends on your revenue model there, of course. If you're actually going for one of these deeper games that lasts a long time and you've got microtransactions, you might have a different sort of development schedule than if you're doing just sponsor-based.
Oh yeah, well, I'm talking about sponsor-based stuff. I'm not really talking about microtrans. I never do microtransactions or do anything more than your basic random game.
It's a different world when you try to do microtransactions. The game really has to be big enough to support them. Because if you're doing this thing where you're selling hats or you're selling weapons or whatever, you can imagine that you must have a much larger framework to be able to fit all those goodies into.
Yeah, absolutely. But the rule of thumb that I go by is when you're making a sponsor game, you're aiming for 10-15 minutes of gameplay on average, and then when you're making a microtransactions game, you're aiming for hours or weeks worth of gameplay, and so changes the scope quite a bit.
But what I was going to say was, I think a lot of games that you buy, like console games, if they were Flash games, people wouldn't really be interested in playing them. They wouldn't, take the half an hour that it gets to get into something like Metal Gear or.
I don't think that's true.
I think that's true because I see a lot of games with very long intros, and I know that people just turn them straight off and go on to the next thing that's going to get them kind of,
Well, yeah, Flash games are pick up and play. Usually want to get to what makes them good right away. But I've seen Flash games out there that do the long ass intro that have been And it really depends, I guess. It depends on the game and how good it is.
And it depends on the audience you're trying to target. If your audience has a lot of time on their hands, if they're younger people, then sure, you can do that whole 15-minute intro. You know, if you're trying to rope people in and make something look sort of like a Japanese RPG and you've got the really bloated story off the top, I don't really go for those games myself, but if your audience is into that, then have at it. But I mean, the question was, how do you make these games, hook people, right, Joe?
Yeah.
So, from my experience, one great way to do it is to make a big deal about the player, even if the player isn't doing really anything that's a big deal. So, the example I was thinking of was do you guys remember the Simpsons game?
Which one?
When the Simpsons movie came out, they had the Simpsons game.
Oh, yeah.
And so, the Simpsons game, if you hit the start button to start playing the game, you get an achievement. So PopCap Games does this a lot. They make a huge deal over you, and and if you play Peggle and you beat one level, at the very end of the level, they play Ode to Joy, and angels singing, and sparks are flying out at your face and catching your eyebrows on fire. So and it's hard not to get taken in by that. You haven't done much, but man, the game loves you and thinks you're brilliant. So that's, I find, a good way to hook somebody into keeping on playing.
Yeah, one of the things you see in console games is people have paid their money. So they're in for the ride. Whatever the hell the developer wants to do, they can do what they want, and the person is invested. With Flash games, you don't have that. You have to keep them for every little second. You have to fight for. One of the techniques that I like is it's called scaffolding, and you're basically you slowly build up the experience piece by piece by piece. So you can start with a very simple thing, like you said, where you just press the button. But then you can build up this much deeper and more complex gameplay. Like we had on the Bunny game, it's a strategy game, and you've got tons of objects, and people play for hours. But what we did is we slowly scaffolded up all the different skills, and the retention in the early bit was pretty reasonable. So it's possible to have a deep game, but just start simply and work the way your player up, so they slowly gain more complex skills.
That's a really good tip. I had the same experience when I was working at Weekend Game Jam, and I built this game called Bloat that you can play on the site. And it was, I started out slow in my mind, and then really built it out to all these great features it was going to have. And I would have, if I was dumb, just sunk the whole thing in there, and you would have opened it up, and all, crazy mayhem would be going on. It'd be like the last 5 minutes of the Muppet Show. But I thought, man, what's a better way to go about this? And I haven't heard that term, Dan, scaffolding. But I guess that's what we did with it. We scaled it all the way back, so it's just like, here's the character, here's how to move. Great, you win. Next level. Here's how to make the character move the opposite direction. Oh, you're amazing. We kept going, and we built it up into that crazy, complex thing that sounds like Bunny is when you get to the end of it. Oh, does Bunny end?
Bunny does end. The next version will not end, but Bunny does in fact end.
No, why did you make it end? And when it ends, is that sort of like the end of you being able to charge people money, or what's the deal?
That one, mostly what we were doing with Bunny, the very first version, is we were just experimenting with, hey, can we get people to play for more than 15 minutes? So it was a really simple experiment right off the bat. And we learned a lot of good things about, story, for example. Story tends to run out and is kind of expensive to do. So in future versions of Bunny, we're not focusing on story as much. So, the first Bunny was really just an experiment. Can we actually get Flash people to play for a long time? And I think the stats were, of the people who finished the game, which was about 26%, they played on average 3 hours. So you can get people to play a Flash game for a reasonable amount of time.
Now, actually, now, Dan, I'm kind of interested in what you were saying about the whole idea of starting out slow and then kind of building it up and really amping it up. But actually, Edmund, with your games, I don't really see any of that kind of thing. Yet your games are pretty popular. You don't really build up on anything. You just kind of, have this. I don't know. It's a lot different from what they were saying and how you seem to design it.
I'm basically the opposite of what's being said, because my games aren't based on microtransactions like that. I'm not trying to hook the player in with a formula. Usually most games with microtransactions have an addictive formula where you're running a treadmill basically, and they give you a little piece of food, and then you got to run a little bit more, and then they give you another piece of food, but then you got to run a little bit more for the next piece, and so on and so forth. And then usually you end up being like, okay, well, I can just pay more and get what I want instead, which is not a formula I think is morally good. and it's something that I try to shy away from because I think we kind of got to watch ourselves when it comes to our responsibility as designers, and when it comes to addiction, because it's just not that great to play with addictive qualities of things. And I think we're all at a point where we could acknowledge that video games can be pretty addicting, and I would just much rather give somebody a really thought out artistic for nothing. And maybe that's the reason why I'm poor. But I'm more in this for our just artistic growth and trying to push video games in the right direction and teach myself, basically. I mean, I've been branching out to console development, and in the past 5 years that I've been doing Flash games, I've learned a lot in a very short amount of time, and it's all basically because it's really easy to prototype ideas and then see exactly how people react to them. But yeah, my games are usually challenging, even when it comes to content. I try to push things that people probably wouldn't pay for, or things that I knew wouldn't get published, or stuff that's just untouchable, to see how people react to it. But no, yeah, my stuff gets played, and I just, because it's not like a lot of the other stuff out there.
So it seems like the audience, well, actually, it doesn't seem like you're even really targeting a particular audience. It seems like you're just trying to give more of an experience to the player than actually any particular, I don't know.
Yeah, no, you'll never hear me say demographic or anything like that. I don't care about business. I don't care about who's playing my games as far as like targeting who or whatever else. I'm just making a game that I find interesting, and knowing that when I make it, it'll find its own target audience. They'll play it and they'll enjoy it, and I don't really care about who doesn't enjoy it. It's just, I know my games are niche games that are going to appeal to a certain type of people. Don't know who those people are. I mean, I accept that. I'm not trying to appeal to the masses. It's never something that I try to do. But again, this is not a good business thing. This isn't a way to make money. This is quite the opposite. But this is just what I do, and this is why I'm doing it. This is what I enjoy, so I do it this way.
Careful, though, when you suggest that microtransactions, the only way to sort of get people buying into microtransactions is to do the whole mill thing and to milk that addiction. There are tons of ways to get people to pay small amounts of money or just online amounts of money. I mean, I've seen microtransactions called virtual transactions, virtual payment systems instead, because it's not all about the 50 cents, right? So, I mean, just one example would be if you've got an ad. This is one thing we're experimenting with. If you've got a game that's got ad injection and you charge people to not watch the ads,
Yeah, I mean, I don't even do ad injection, but like, I don't know. I've thought about it too. I get emails like at least twice a week of microtransaction people talking to me about how I should be adding these to my games and yada yada yada. And I can't morally, I don't know. It's really hard for me as an artist to already see the ad that I have on the load screen. Like, if I had money and I was living comfortably, I'd remove those ads as well.
My thing about the microtransactions is that it's really not a huge amount of money. Like, people like something like $1 or something. People, will happily pay that for, almost nothing, half a cup of coffee or, a piece of plastic or something like that. So if you're giving them hours of entertainment, I don't think it's a huge moral.
No, yeah, it's not necessarily that, but it's more like, honestly, I know there are games out there that unlock more content and like editors and whatever else for a few bucks, which I guess is all right. But I don't know. I understand. I understand the justification of this is nothing. This is what people are going to throw money away on, buying candy or whatever else, and then they're getting enjoyment out of it. But for me, for the stuff that I do, I feel like it would take away from the experience.
I think you got
weird. I so disagree. But if I go to the Louvre, let's take a great painter. Da Vinci does Mona Lisa. He might like to see that for free. I can't. I got to pay my admission to the Louvre. All my life, all the video game entertainment I've played, I've purchased. I bought The Secret of Monkey Island for $70 back in the day, back on the Amiga. I've spent thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars on entertainment, and never once did I think, oh, man, they're really taking advantage of me. This is morally wrong for them to expect me to pay them money to be entertained.
Well, that's not what I'm saying at all, though. I mean, there would be more for me, like I don't know if you guys have played Time Fuck or not, but if I were to...
Sorry, we don't allow language like time in this podcast?
Like if I were to set up a microtransaction in the game that was like them or whatever else, or when you finish the game, unlock more and whatever, it just seems like it would remove the player from the experience. In a situation like if you go to an art museum that's free, and then they kind of have, oh, hey, there's this part of the museum that you got to pay for. Seems like, oh, wait, they got me in here, and now they're going to juice me for some money, and it just totally kind of destroys the experience.
Here in Toronto at the museum, you can get in and pay your regular admission to go to the museum, or you can tack on the extra $12 or whatever to see the King Tut exhibit, for example.
Yeah,
those things, the special exhibitions are normally, the fact that you're paying for it is what makes it special, right? If everyone was, in that bit, it would be boring.
The velvet rope is very powerful. You can give someone a velvet rope, and people will pay suddenly $50 for a glass of champagne, even though it's like in one section of the dance floor. That's
no, but see, that's what I'm saying, though. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's just like, yeah, that happens, but isn't that really fucking seedy? Isn't that weird?
No, you created.
Isn't that questionable in some way?
People are status-driven creatures, so so there's two ways of looking at it. So these are issues that I've seen come up, and I think Edmund's point is completely and utterly valid. So you have two things: one, an exchange of value, right? You've got, hey, the player's enjoying my game. I can give them more value. Will they pay money for it? And in a lot of people's minds, that's completely valid. But there's another side of it that I think really gets to the heart of why microtransactions are really sort of scary to a lot of developers. Microtransactions, or any sort of transactional system that you build into your game, changes your game design. Fundamentally, it changes your game design, because in order to generate value that people are willing to pay for, that value doesn't come from the box, it doesn't come from the brand, it comes from the game that you've designed. And to set up those systems, to set up those mechanics, you need to change your design to adapt to microtransactions. And for the types of games that Edmund, you're doing these beautiful, evocative experiences, and they make you feel funny, and they in special ways. But they're these wonderful experiences, right? And you have a very specific vision of what that experience is, and to change that to something that suddenly needs to take into account microtransactions, that's like some outside force. It's an outside constraint coming in, an economic constraint that's saying you need to make something different. And that, as an artist, I can totally accept that feels unpleasant.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's not, and I'm not saying, okay, not everybody here is doing the same thing, and I don't think we're all on the exact same page when it comes to what we're doing and why we're doing it. For me, yes, this doesn't work for me, and namely because when I go in to design a game, if I start thinking about money, and if I start thinking about adding those qualities that would make it possible for me to add microtransactions, it's totally screwing up the design, and I'm suddenly having to design within these boundaries, which everybody seems to be designing. I mean, I realize there's always the exception, but of all the games I've seen with microtransactions, they all use the same formula, and the formula is obvious, and I just feel like this doesn't fit with what I'm doing, and if I wanted to make some extra money off of a game, I would just sell it on Steam. Like, I'd make a full game and sell it and say, hey, look, this is $5, buy it for $5, you get the experience, instead of doing something that I find for myself questionable in terms of, then I'm going to charge you. You know what I mean?
Is it just the addiction thing that you don't like? I mean, look at say Rock Band 2, right? They're not really getting you on that treadmill that you're talking about, and I can appreciate where you're coming from with being wary of that. But Rock Band, you pay, you get 70 songs, you play through them, that's fun. You want to play through more songs, you pay more money.
Yeah, honestly, I'm talking more along the lines of like games like Pet Society or Farmtown, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where they make you run, and then they give you the option to pay your own money instead of running, and they're already giving you an experience that's almost completely empty, where you're going to look back and go, wow, I wasted a shitload of fucking time doing nothing, and I got nothing. It's all digital nothingness, and then you look and you've paid so much for it, and it's just like the idea of doing these shortcuts where it's like, yeah, you could. It's just like going into the theater or whatever, and then saying, for only 25 cents more, you can get the large. You're a fool not for doing that. Like, why would you want to spend 10 hours to try to get this new couch when you can just spend $10?
Well,
it's that quality that I don't like.
So this is an interesting thing that comes down to it as well. Like, when you're making something as an artistic expression, you're thinking about, honestly, one person, which is yourself.
Yeah.
When I paint a picture, I'm thinking mostly about me and what I'm expressing and that sort of thing. When you have this thing that is meant to be consumed by other people, you start realizing, well, there's different people and they value different things. Like the whole thing that
sorry.
Fine.
Oh my God, Ed's house is burning down.
Like the whole difference between the time-rich people and the money-rich people. They both think each other suck, right? Like the money-rich people can't understand why someone would spend 50 hours working on something when they could just do it. I mean, who has 50 hours to spend on anything? The time-rich people look at the money-rich people and say, you're cheating. I mean, the joy is doing this sort of thing and spending the time and grinding through it.
But I mean, don't you think it's a really surreal place that we're in, where people. A job is to make money on games and then sell that virtual money, like almost in sweatshops.
I think
you know what?
I think it's no different.
3,000 years, everything's dust anyway. So really, what's the difference between doing a virtual job and doing a real world job? You know what I mean? The building that you're building today with your real body, with real sweat for real money, is just going to crumble, and it's pretty existential. You know what I'm saying?
Well, actually, okay, let's try to pull away from the whole. Let's try and convince Edmund to put microtransactions.
It's okay to have both, the artistic bent and the commercial bent. And
isn't there somewhere in between as well, though? I don't like to think that I'm either.
I think the in between.
Artist or.
I honestly think the in between is either selling your game straight up, or I can understand in multiplayer games, like online multiplayer games. Having hats and shit like that you can pay for to unlock that make you look cool or whatever. I can see that, and I can see justifying that because it doesn't really take away from the experience. It's more like, hey, I want to look unique, let's do that. And it's a multiplayer experience, so it focuses on other people and status and whatever else. But it's just like, all I'm saying, and I've probably already restated this more than a couple times, but the addictive qualities that are slightly abusive is the stuff that I don't like, where it's like you don't. It's just I think
the games you're talking about are made purely for the process of making money, right?
It's a formula. It's a formula that works.
Yeah, I mean that's different from someone who cares about games but also wants to make money from them, right?
Yeah, it's different from somebody who, I think there is a middle ground. I mean, I see what I'm doing as a middle ground. I need to be able to. Support myself and support my family and to make money, and I've chosen that instead of doing road work, I'd like to make games.
I mean, I honestly, I'm really not trying to say that like what I'm doing is better than. This is just how I work, and that's how you work, and everything else, and I understand that. But for me, in my world, I'm just saying like I couldn't see myself doing these certain things because of this, and I'm not saying that everybody else sucks, and I'm not saying everybody else is morally jacked. Morals are completely relative. I'm just saying in my world, in my existence, in my little bubble, that's something that doesn't work for me. And I live the consequences of not taking money from people. I mean, I hope to make some more I hope to make
Totally
some money
reasonable.
off of console games and games that I actually sell and I've been, I don't know. It's just
Which console platforms are you looking at?
I'm developing for the Wii and for Xbox Live.
Right. Okay.
Okay, Edmund, I would say you're what we call a starving artist, pretty much. That's what it's seeming like.
I'm not super starving. I mean, after the surgery, yeah. But
Don't tell us you ate the gallbladder.
I wish they wouldn't give it to me.
Oh, what a rip! It's your gallbladder.
I know. I guess there's like legal stuff that send around.
I've got placenta. I've got my second daughter's placenta sitting in the freezer right now.
Oh, okay. Let's move
Give me
away
your
from
address.
that.
We'll
You
ship
can make
it.
omelets out of that.
I've heard that.
Actually,
I have-
it's a delicacy too. It's worth a lot of money, but let's not go down that road.
Okay, who's buying? Donate button is going on the site. That's it.
Okay, let's
Vice bidder.
let's try and
Can we?
go ahead.
Should we do a tangent?
Go.
That wasn't a
I think
tangent.
I think we're down a bit of a cul-de-sac with placentas and tortured artists.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about, right, was like artwork in games and whether I sometimes wonder like how much do people care, because you look at some games which are really fun and really popular, like games like Super Stacker and Red Remover, and the graphics are a box with some eyes, but you know those games do really well and are really fun to play, and so do we need the level of artwork and things that are in?
It depends.
That's the perfect answer.
So the games tend to have audiences that prefer a particular style of game, right? Like you get people who love a particular genre, right?
Is someone on a ghost train?
Dude, I don't know what's going on, man.
And do you like live in the fire station?
I know. I live like a block from the fire department.
Are you a Dalmatian? What's happening?
Continue.
I'm sorry,
So
guys.
I'll continue there. So what happens is once a genre becomes crowded, and there's lots of games and lots of competition, and people's playtime becomes saturated. So let's say there's a physics game out there that they're playing all the time. Then in order to stand out in the crowd, you have to use something other than gameplay, because gameplay is pretty much converged on a formula at that point, to stand out. And the things you can use to stand out are things like graphics, you can use brand, there's all sorts of stuff you can use to stand out. Marketing, huge, gigantic marketing budgets. Like the way EA stands out from the crowd right now is they spend $10 million on a game and then $30 million on the marketing budget. So, but that's in a very, very mature market. If you look at the Flash games, the genre is still there. There's lots of competition, but they're not very mature. There's still, you play a game, it doesn't take up your entire life. You can quickly go on to the next one. So the gameplay becomes much more important than adding these additional differentiators like graphics. So you should, when you're looking at where you put your graphics, you should say, well, I mean, one's just a personal choice. I want to make a beautiful experience, but that's not necessarily a market factor. The other one is, hey, where is this genre? And is it crowded? Is it not? Is it mature? Well,
this was the reasoning behind why we called our trivia game Interrupting Cow Trivia, giving it such a ridiculous title. Because I looked at all the other trivia games out there, and they were called Super Brain Trivia, IQ, Amazing Brain Knowledge, School, Class, College. And and they all took place. They were all sort of themed around like a TV game show experience, and it was just, it's just like, this is why Nintendo called their box the Wii instead of the Nintendo 4.6 or whatever, because when soccer moms go in to order it, they're gonna go with the name that they can pronounce and recognize, and it's different than the Playbox X40 or whatever, So that was the idea. That was the idea behind the naming anyway. And the theme of the game takes place in a diner instead of in just a 60s or 70s game show, TV game show. Mm-hmm. I was just playing just before this podcast. I was playing. You guys know Machinarium?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's out finally! Hooray! I'm so excited. So I mean, there's an example of a really gorgeous game. It's like heartbreakingly gorgeous, but and at the risk of getting lynched by the guys who created it, it's I mean, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill graphic adventure game, and I've played a lot of those, and it doesn't really stand out as far as the brilliance of puzzles, and the interface isn't that great. But it'll sell because the art's really hot. I'm gonna drop my $20 on it just because it looks so darn good.
It's $20?
Yeah, dude, that's high, eh?
Yeah, that is high.
Yeah.
That's surprisingly high.
I was a little bummed.
Huh.
Wow. Yeah. So from what you're saying, okay. Well, actually, let's go back to a point. One of the things that you're saying. I mean, right now, in the Flash space, the kind of games that you'll see a lot is either Geometry War ripoff games or tower defense games or stuff or a lot of physics games too. I mean, but it's so crowded in there. I mean, everyone always makes the same thing.
It isn't actually crowded. Really? The Flash game market, people say, oh, it's so crowded. But in terms of the number of people who are making high-quality games, it's surprisingly low.
You only get one good game every week, maybe, at the most.
So do you think we have a quality problem? Do you think there are too many bad Flash developers? No offense to people that are learning.
I don't think there are too many bad Flash developers. I mean, that's how they learn, right?
Well,
right. But it's the fact that in the console space, you would not, while you've learned the product for 6 months, you wouldn't be putting out.
That's because you're paying
game.
for it.
Yeah.
Well, have you been to the Wii shelf lately?
Yeah, low barriers to entry end up with large numbers of low-skilled content creators. I mean, you look in any industry, look at romance novels, it happens.
Sure.
So
I think the best stuff rises to the top. So
yeah,
I don't see massive issue.
So as long as there's systems for it to rate things and have it rise to the top, that's the important thing. And what I think the bigger problem is not the quantity of low quality titles; it's the lack of high quality titles. There's just we're still learning how to make great Flash games, and the skill set it just isn't there as much compared to other industries, other game industries.
I mean, also, how long, has the finance model really been there? Because, I've been doing Flash for about 9 years, and back in kind of 2001 times, you made Flash games, but there was nothing you could actually do with them. There was no way to make money with them, and everyone, we were all dreaming about how we could get into consoles, how we could do Game Boy games, or how we could do, GBA games, or any way out of Flash. And now it seems like it's suddenly you've got things like Flash Game License and Mocky, and where it's gone the other way, where it's people are now EA and stuff are trying to get into Flash. So it's such a recent thing. I think how old is something like even Mocky is only a couple of years old, right?
Yep,
it's very recent, and the guys behind Mochi came up with it because they used to be in the whole mill of creating games. Flash games used to be only useful for marketing, so they were in that whole marketing thing, and they had that problem that they couldn't make any money off their Flash games. So their corporate story is they came up with the whole Mochi ad system to help. They're so benevolent to help game developers make money from their games.
The one reason I love Flash and swear by it for all startup developers and everything is the ability to prototype and grow. In order to learn this stuff, you need to experience designing games. And if you've made 1 or 2 games, you've really just surfaced as far as your understanding of how people react to the games, how games are designed, the experience behind actually making the games, working with different people and everything else. And just the fact that I think in the past 5 years, I've made about 20 Flash games. And I've learned so much in such a small amount of time, and I feel like if that wasn't available, that I would just have learned nothing, and maybe made Gish and one other PC game in that amount of time, and I would have learned not even half of what I learned in the past 5 years of just doing Flash games, because you get that instant feedback from people, you get to see how they understand the games, and you also just get hands-on experience with actually making it. So I think it's a great platform, even if you're forgotten. If you make some game that's not that good, you'll still get enough feedback from people to understand what you're doing wrong and be able to make another game.
Well, okay, actually, where do you guys begin? When you even start designing your games, what's the first step you do? How do you get inspired? What things do you do?
Me?
Yeah, how about you? First you.
Well, it really depends. It's usually like with Timefuck, it was based on, hey, I want to make a game that talks about the situation that I'm in, where I was kind of in an office situation. I'd recently split up from Cryptic Sea, and I've been working with Cryptic Sea for quite a long time, and I kind of felt stagnant, I guess, there, and I felt stuck. And then I'd recently had a high school reunion, 10-year high school reunion, and when I went there, it was really depressing, and everybody was kind of drunk and upset about their lives, and it was really depressing. And I just kind of wanted to make a game that was based on the idea that you don't have to accept the box that you're put in, and to kind of question your surroundings and change your perspective on things. And that was Timefuck, and that's the whole basis of that game. So for me, it's like if something comes up like that where I feel moved by something in my personal life and I really want to make a game around it, or sometimes I'll just be working with somebody and they'll be like, hey, you want to make a platformer, you want to make a shooter or whatever else, and then I'm like, okay, let's make a shooter, but I want to make something that's innovative, so how about we make a shooter where you just play as the bullet and you don't actually shoot? And then I made Gray Matter with Tommy Reffinus. So it's just like, sometimes it's just, hey, I come up with a cool mechanic and then just wrap a game around it, or sometimes it'll be like, hey, I want to try to make an experience has really strong theme and maybe something personal, and just throw it out there. I mean, but not all my games are the same. I like making formulaic games. I like game design. I try to hone my skills, and I try to do as much of a range of video game genres as I can, so I can have an understanding of everything that goes into game design.
How about you, Dan?
For me, I tend to be horribly mechanics focused. So I'm always looking at like what's the core system. If you look at a game like an Onion, I'm always looking like, all right, what's sitting there at the heart of the onion that people are doing over and over and over again that's delightful and fun. And then I sort of build everything around that. So I build the plot around that and the metagame mechanics around that. But my notebooks are just filled with just, ooh, here's a cool system, here's a cool system, here's a cool system. And then I tend to rely on some pretty standard ways of making those into longer games from there on out.
So wait, do you like focusing more on making longer games? Do you find more people enjoy doing those or playing those?
So the games that you create, we don't think about this very much, but the games that you create the form of the games is very much dependent on the constraints and the economic sort of ecosystem that you live within. So the reason why Metroid is the game it is because game developers had to put games in boxes, and they had to be a certain length to justify the price tag, and they had to meet the constraints of the hardware. And so we've got this mentality like, oh, this is what a game is, because that's what the retail model was. The same thing's happening with Flash. We think, oh, this is what Flash games are like because, well, I don't have enough time and resources to make anything longer. So I've invested my soul in making these short games, and it's part of my identity now. And I can't see that those constraints are actually based off this economic ecosystem. When I look at longer form games, what I'm saying is look, there's a new food source in this ecosystem. There's a new way there's a new revenue source, and the games that will survive, the animals that will evolve that actually survive in that environment are longer form games. So it's more, if the ecosystem changes, the form of the game changes. So it's as simple as that. So that's why I'm focusing on longer form games these days.
Interesting. Yeah. Because you do tend to see a lot of really casual, super simple games that do 10 times better than the much bigger ones out there. So, but I guess that kind of goes back to what you're saying about they're just kind of going with works and yeah. Oh well.
Yeah. Well, the shorter games in the Flash market that do quite well, they're all based off as long as someone watches the first 10 seconds of the game. That's all that matters. So you want something. It's not worth investing in the later period of the game because all that matters is they share it with a friend and they watch the 10 seconds. Everything else is
based on
extra.
Number of hits, number of plays, not time, not duration played.
Yeah. So you look at game developers. I mean, that's a constraint of the ecosystem, and why would they even bother? What's the economic incentive in that particular food source? If you think of it, in biological terms. Why would they even bother building a longer game? It's meaningless. It's useless to their bottom line.
How about you, Ryan? What do you do?
It sounds like Dan and I came to the same conclusion at the same time. I just saw all these crummy little games. I took one of my crummy little games and sort of threw it out there and, did the whole ad injection thing. And I learned really quickly that, unless your game, I don't know, has boobies in the first 10 or 15 seconds or whatever, really grips people, you're not getting a lot of love. You're just going to get buried. So I thought, we're calling them premium experiences now. So something a bit longer form, something higher quality. So that's what I started investing my time into. But the risk of sounding like the bad guy, I've got a business to run. And the biggest side of my business is in taking fee-for-service projects. So a lot of the game designs that I've had on the back burner have been due to business requirements. Like we wanted to be able to offer multiplayer games to our clients. So we went and built a multiplayer game, and that's how Interrupted Cow Trivia came about. We wanted to be able to develop, like a global high score system. So we started out with one for the site, and that's how Inflatable Zombies is coming about. But on the purely creative side, a lot of my game ideas come from the desire to break with convention and do something directly in the face of what other game developers are doing. Like, I'll give you an example. None of these games are finished. This is all theoretical. We had this game, Spellcaster, on the back burner for a good long time. And what I wanted to do with Spellcaster was I got mad when people would come to me and they'd say, "Oh my God, did you try this awesome Japanese RPG?" They'd say, "The story is incredible." I'm like, "Oh wow, story incredible. I like story." So I go and I'd sit down with this game, and the so-called story would be, "Help us. There is a monster attacking our village. Can you defeat the monster?" So I'd go defeat the monster, and then next town, "Help us. We lost a ring in a cave, and at the end of the cave is a big monster, and you beat it up, and there you got the ring." Right? And that was what people were calling great story. So I wanted to write this game that actually had great story, and actually took those conventions and turned them on their heads. Similarly, we have this game concept called Ghost Town. And I hate games where you die and then you just get resurrected. You just get spawned somewhere, and it's like, well, what happened to your body? In some games, your corpse is way across town, and people are taking all the loot from it or whatever. So we came up with this idea for a game called Ghost Town, where you're a cowboy, but you're kind of like a cowboy in purgatory. And when you die, you're now in the ghost world part of the game, so you're a ghost. And then you can go to slain cowboys' bodies, and you possess them as a ghost, and you become a zombie. And your whole idea as a zombie is to gain your mortality again. So you've got cowboys fighting zombies fighting ghosts, which I think would be a pretty kick-ass time.
Wow. How about you?
I know, right? Throw some ninjas in there. Good job, Hack.
Finish it off with some pirates. That will really just... Yeah. How about you, Iain?
Well, I mean, I have a famous list of about kind of 40 or 50 ideas that I've just kind of thought of over the last few years and never got time to do because, like Ryan, if you're doing client work most of the time, you have lots of brilliant ideas and then you never get to do them. But I think a lot of the time it comes from, doing a bit of development stuff. Like, the first time I played with a multi-user engine or whatever, you just get a load of ideas that come out of the technology. Or if you play with something like Box2D, you get ideas from that. So for a bit of client work, I did a pitch for the Lemmings website. And so I developed a load of little lemmings in Flash, and just kind of playing with that technology of okay, it's a lemming, he walks right and then he walks left. I got a load of my own ideas of okay, where could you take that to? Into, having some kind of thing where it's battles between two opposing forces of lemming type things. And, so I think I like the idea of you just start with something fairly, that exists already, and then just give it your own twist. And I think this is where, a lot of great games come from. But I mean, another thing I just want to talk about is obviously if you're doing kind of fee-for-service type client work, there's a definite art to kind of taking your client's ideas, which aren't necessarily very good, and actually caring about it and actually trying to turn it into a good game. And that's definitely a skill in itself, because clients often have their own game ideas about what they would like to do, and it's not necessarily something that's actually going to be fun to play. So I think this is a really huge problem in that side of the industry that I do my best to try and go, okay, let's inject some fun into something that could ultimately end up being just a corporate bit of box ticking or whatever.
Depends on the client, though. We've had lousy luck with that lately. We had a client recently come to us and say, oh, we want a game like this, and they pointed me to a Flash game on some site that a bunch of people had played. I said, oh, great. What aspects of this game do you like? And they said, we want this game.
Yeah.
So, there we go. Doing a knockoff, a clone of a game. So it's not really creatively fulfilling, but it's
Have you seen the company that they basically have a backlog of like 100 games that they've built in the past, and then what they do is when a client comes to them, they just skin them.
Yeah, it's like Splashworks. Is that who you're talking about?
I can't remember the name of them. They were talking at the Flash Game Summit last year.
There are a few companies like that. Splashworks here in Toronto is one of them.
There's a website that has something like 1,000 game engines, and they're like $100 each. I found it once. Oh, I'm looking for it now on Google. What was it called?
Makes me nervous.
It makes it seem really easy, doesn't it? It makes you seem like the value of a Flash game is $100.
Well, yeah, and the client's going to think that the Flash games that they buy here for $100 are going to be basically the same thing that they get a guy to build from scratch,
right.
And really put his heart and soul into. Well, that's not really the case, I hope.
Anyone else have anything to add? Anything to say? Anything at all?
Okay, so yeah, man, I've got a list of things that I thought that we were actually going to talk about, but I guess we didn't quite get there. Kids like pets is one thing I wrote down. I was just listing things from my experience that young players enjoy. Kids like collections, especially complicated collections. Kids like pets. We were talking about making a game super complex after starting out really simply, and I think that's one thing. One of bazillions of things that Pokemon did really well. Started off simply, you get one pet, and then you get like this huge collection of pets, and some are seen, and some are traded, and some are some are captured, and some are shiny, and it gets insane, right? But they don't start that way. They build up to that complexity. These are just random thoughts that are not connected to anything.
Ooh, can I riff off that?
Do it.
So one of the things that people don't realize about Pokemon, particularly people who are adults, is that Pokemon is at its heart a social game. The reason why it's so crazily popular is because it allows young boys to interact with each other in a way that we used to do like marble trading. That makes me really old, but it's this I always use the term social lubricant. It's this way of getting people to interact without being that weird, oh, I'm just going to interact with you. No, they have a medium to interact with. And that's what Pokemon does. Now, one of the things I've noticed about Flash games, and a lot of this has to do with the skill deficit in Flash developers, is Flash developers are really not doing a lot with any sort of social interaction between players.
Really?
There's been a little bit with multiplayer
true.
Games. There's been hardly anything with more of the. I mean, if you look at Facebook, right? I know Facebook is sort of this completely different world, and they're a different alien tribe and all that. But they've basically taken this idea of social game mechanics and they've run with it. And they're using Flash too. They're Flash game developers too. They're just doing a different type of game mechanic, and they've happened to find that it's insanely profitable and lots of people love it. But what I'm curious about is why don't Flash game developers who operate on portal sites do this sort of thing? It seems like there are people, and people like to interact with each other socially. So it's a style of gameplay that might work,
I think it's the lack of multiplayer servers, and also latency and like online play. I made one online game, and I used XGen's multiplayer server, and it took a really long time to develop for, and I don't even know of many others. Like, there's just like a handful of kind of okay multiplayer servers that people are using for online gaming, and that's basically it.
Are you talking about the hardware server or the software?
It goes beyond the software, exactly. I mean, even if for one thing, most Flash developers are client-side developers. Basically, they know Flash and not much else. And to do a multi-user game, you need to have access to your own server, which is it's not really expensive to do, but it's something that people just don't think to do.
Well, I think it's beyond the ken of like the stereotypical 14-year-old Flash developer. Have you ever been to a site where the guy's like, oh, I had to shut Fun Game Zone down because I couldn't afford the $20 hosting, whatever. they can't, they can't, some kids can't swing the hosting account, and then we're using Electro Server, and the license there I think is you get 10 free connections, and then if you go up to the next tier, it's $700. So it's completely out of reach for a lot of kids.
I'm not sure about this idea though that Flash developers are 14 years old. I just honestly don't believe it's true.
Well, there's that survey that Moshi did and partnered with this guy and the other guy. I forget who all was involved, but I think that you'll find if you look at that survey. I'm not even too sure if it's released, so I should shut my mouth pretty quickly. But you may find here I'm going to predict the future. You may find that there were a lot of 14-year-olds on that survey.
Just a random number might be like 60%.
Sure.
I honestly don't believe that, because I think that people who make Flash games professionally, say in the agency world, wouldn't fill in that survey.
Yeah,
I think it's only people who hang around on the Mochi forums,
Well, this is it. The respondents to the survey, if there actually was a survey, and if I have any knowledge of what's on that survey, the survey was put out to where the 14-year-olds hang out, so it's a bit skewed that way. But
are they saying that they're 14-year-old developers? That it's a 60% average of 14-year-old developers?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of 14-year-olds, I'm sure, think that they're developing for Flash. That's completely retarded. There's no way that there are a bunch of 14-year-olds making money off of actually developing games.
Oh no, not making money. Making games.
I know hundreds of Flash developers. I know almost all the successful Flash developers out there, and none of them are even close to 14 years old. The youngest developer I know is 16.
This is the Newgrounds Addicting Games crowd.
Yeah, but that's a kid that calls himself a Flash developer because he makes an animation on Newgrounds.
Right. That may not be people who are actually making money. Those are people who just call themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not professionals, but they're
Flash and made an animation and took the test because it was on their site that they visit.
But this is the question. This is the Dan asked why aren't more Flash developers using these social hooks, and I'm positing that it's because most of the people who call themselves Flash developers out there are 14 years old and can't afford the $20.
No, but I would say that most of the people who are making decent Flash games aren't using multi-user.
Yeah. No, I think what it is well, of all the experience of all the different programmers that I've worked with over the years, is if they're competent enough to make a multiplayer game, they're not doing Flash anymore. They've got a job at a company, or they're doing stuff on Steam, or making full-fledged indie PC games, or doing console stuff. It's usually that's usually when they make the jump.
They've left the ghetto.
Yeah, that's basically it. It's like why would I spend all this extra time on this multiplayer game when I can just make a real quote real game, and then they make the move. And I've worked with quite a few people who did exactly that. And
I think that's that end of that era is nigh, surely, right? Because you just have to look at the Facebook games, which are essentially multi-user Flash games, and they're making a ton. So
might I make
it's probably definitely fading. I wish there was more. I honestly wish there were more. I really think the future of Flash games is in multiplayer stuff, and I say this really often, and I really wish that there were more developers that would work with me on doing multiplayer stuff, because that's one area that I really.
I agree with that, definitely, because if you think about one of the advantages that Flash has is with Flash that the user is actually connected to the internet, which is something you don't have on Game Boy, Xbox, any other platform.
Like a no-brainer, it does.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But could take it from somebody who's actually currently developing a multiplayer Flash game. There are bears in the woods. One of the problems that you have, one of the many problems that you have, is that you launch this thing. We haven't quite launched yet. We're in alpha, but if there's nobody there to play the game, and it's a game that requires people to play together, you get one person come in to an empty room and then leave, and then an hour later you'll get one person come into an empty room and then leave. And in order to sort of get that momentum rolling, we're really struggling with how to do that. And the
just asynchronous gameplay.
We have that. We introduced that, but then all the time that we spent on the multiplayer stuff is out the window. So the one solution that is rattling around in my brain, if you guys have any other ideas, I'm open, is to pay India to play the game for a month.
I would take bots. Do bots. Do AI?
Yeah, that's what we did on Zwok, and it was really, really successful because we, on Zwok, we had bots and we didn't tell you they were bots. So
Yeah,
But
no,
was,
that's the smart move.
Zwok, was it based on like this is a trivia game, so I'd have to fake that the bot guessed the answer or something,
Right.
Well, that's what they do in all
the
games. All old school NES games that were only 2-player, that were like Jeopardy and whatever else, they're always 3-player, but one of them's always the computer, and it always worked.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, guys.
Edmund, you said that you've noticed most of the developers that you work with, they tend to kind of just jump ship and start working on console games and stuff. Why do you think that? I mean, they just don't want to keep going with it and do multiplayer games in Flash. I mean,
I think it's just like there's a mental block with I do think it's changing, like you guys have mentioned, and I do think Flash has become more legit. But like I remember when I was doing Flash games in 2003, right, or 2004. Right when I started working on Gish, when I got a job with Chronic Logic and we were working on Gish, I was like a joke because I worked in Flash. Yeah. Like it was considered I was the hugest joke. I was a script kiddie. I made Flash games. No one's going to play those things. And I remember swearing up and down that no, this is going to give you it's going to give young developers, independent developers a voice, and it's going to be the future of gaming and everything else. And everybody gave me shit about it. And there was still that stigma for years and years and years, where it's like
there still
in a lot
is.
of ways, like yeah, of course there still is. It's like, and especially when like when Tom Fulp made the jump from Alien Hominid Flash to Alien Hominid Console back in 2005, when that jump happened, it was like, okay, this is the progression. This is when you are good enough in Flash, then you make the move to console. And realistically, of course, if you want to make money, you should. And if you're a good developer, you should. And if you're a good developer, you're probably going to get picked up regardless. But I don't know. It's just like,
I mean, that depends. If you want to stay independent, I think staying with Flash is the best idea because, who wants to go from like I've got my own one-person company. I could not imagine going and working in being some faceless drone at EA or whatever.
Oh, well, I'm not saying that. I mean, the console development I'm doing is 100% independent. I have my kit here.
It's just easier to sell. Right, a console game.
There's a stronger revenue model on the downloadable console side than there is currently in the Flash sponsored games world. That is changing.
Yeah,
I have my horrible prophecy to make.
Do it.
The horrible prophecy is that over the next year or two, microtransactions are going to take off, and there's going to be a richer stream of revenue, and someone will actually start making lots of money in the Flash world. And as soon as that happens, not on Facebook, but using the Flash portal ecosystem. But as soon as that happens, bigger fish are going to move into the market. The console guys are the casual downloadable PC guys are getting squeezed right now. There's been a lot of consolidation in that market. Big Fish is doing some very interesting things to increase their dominance there. There's these incredibly talented people who are just looking for the next rich market to hit. And as soon as they find that Flash is making money, they're going to move in, and they're going to start releasing games that are much higher quality. They're going to have great back ends, and then the level of competition is going to rise dramatically.
Well, they're already kind of doing that. I mean, did you guys ever hear about the announcement that BioWare made, that Dragon Age, doing a prequel to it in Flash?
Yeah, and it's already, that's the exact same thing that happened on the iPhone as well. You had all the little guys come in, and then the big guys came in and ate their lunch. All the top 25 are, paid EA.
So that's coming over the next few years here. Next couple years, probably, you'll start seeing that in a big way. Yeah. So my message to people who are Flash developers right now is learn back in programming, actually start making these bigger games and improve your skills. Escape the small game ghetto. And start going where the future's going.
Yeah,
I want. Can I put in my 2 cents as well?
Yeah, go for it.
I would say, I'd say it's of course harder to compete when there's a bunch of big budget, mainstream guys coming in and pushing you around with bigger games and whatever else. But I'll still fight this down for fucking ever. That if you have an original idea and you have. If you just make something unique, it's going to stand out, and if it's good, it's going to get played. And I think that will always be true. And I
then
don't.
Zynga will come in and do a rip off of it.
And that's fine, and they can rip you off all you want, but you can still one-up them. It's really not hard to one-up a big guy. It's really not. It's actually quite easy. It's quite easy.
I agree with that. I think that's right.
Do. There's just so many places that they can't touch.
I mean, think about their overheads as well.
And
Like,
it's like,
you know, to do Dragon Age in Flash, they're going to spend, you know, millions of dollars on it, whereas you can, you know, do a game in a month, and if it doesn't work, you know, do something else.
Exactly.
You've got your agile as being small, you know, so...
But I really think developers need to focus more on. Of course, this isn't going to apply to people who are really looking at the core business stuff and demographics and whatever else, and not looking to turn people off to their games. But if you take big risks and you loosen up and just make something even adult or questionably, you know, violent or over the top in some way, shape, or form, some area that a mainstream developer can't touch. I made a game called Cunt, and then granted I didn't make a ton of money off of it, but I still made it, and a lot of people played it.
They weren't expecting a Flash game, I imagine, when they clicked the link.
I think they were, seeing as it was on a Flash website.
So you had a link
yes.
that said "Play with Cunt," and you think people were expecting a Flash game? No, I'm.
Yeah.
That was a pretty disturbing game, but go ahead.
But yeah, no, it's just the idea that it really isn't hard to just do the things that they can't do. Mainstream publishers cannot take risks, and that's because of the money involved, and because they've got a bunch of business people and a bunch of lawyers and whatever else telling them what they can and can't do. They have major limitations, even though it doesn't look like they have them, and you can really take advantage of those limitations by making something that is weird, is, you know, just kind of, I mean, almost everything that I've done kind of falls into this, and that's what I've been trying to do. I cannot stand out. There's no way for me to compete with these mainstream people by playing the same game as them. It's like I cannot produce as fast as them. I cannot make things look as polished as them. I cannot have as good as graphics or anything else as them. So I'm not playing by the rules anymore. I'm just doing stuff that I find personally enjoyable, and I'm pushing things just out of the box that they can reach. So my stuff's just out there, but it's so different from everything else that stands out.
Yeah, there is like a trend that I've been noticing that's been happening an awful lot, is that people will basically test their game idea in Flash, because, like you said, it was great for prototyping, and then if it does really successful, on the Flash portals, they'll end up porting it to something else, and it does really well.
And it's the way to go, because it's how else. Okay, I mean, it's smart too, because you've made a successful Flash game, right? It's got millions of plays, so it's got so much name recognition, it's insane. It's got a huge ad that's been out for God knows how long, and then you make a console version of it, and of course it's going to do well. I mean, Alien Hominid did it.
Yep.
And that was a huge success as well for them, and of course Castle Crashers then was even more successful. I mean, I got contacted by Nintendo after making Ether.
Really?
And that was going to be the game that I was going to bring to WiiWare. But then right around that time I had made Meat Boy, which got like 8 million plays in the first 2 months. So I'm like, hey, this is obviously way more successful in the market. People know what it is. I'm going to play a smart business move here, and I'm just going to go, hey, let's do this one instead, because I think it's going to be more successful. More people know what it is. And so far, I think I'm right. I think it's the right move. And a lot of people know what Meat Boy is, and I hope a lot of people will buy the game.
Yeah,
but I mean, is it funny that Flash games like routinely do numbers that console games can't dream of? You're talking about 8 million. If you did a console game that did 8 million, you'd be like,
yeah, that'd be nice.
So. What's interesting is the Facebook games are doing similar numbers, except they have a better way of making money.
Right.
So they're making money that's equivalent to the console games. So
they're actually charging, whereas the Flash guys on the portals aren't.
The nice thing about the Flash stuff is you can get your game out there. On the distribution side, you can get your game out there. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and the thing about you were just talking about the Facebook games, I was talking to a CEO of a company, like he's making just a Facebook game, and he's pulling in like $2,000 a week. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, and the numbers are rising every other week too. So it's insane how much money people will pay just for like a little hat or a pair of shoes. It's crazy. I mean, he started charging from I think it was $1 for a little virtual item, and then he knocked it up to about almost $3 or $5, and people were buying the items.
Yeah.
What was the game that sold the moon or the asteroid? Which game was that? There was a game that had virtual. Somebody's going to email me afterwards and tell me what it was. But there was a game where they made some moon or planetoid or asteroid available, and it was ridiculous. It was like $3,000 or some insane real world money price, and there was only one. That was the whole idea. And of course, like it's a virtual good, so you can you can hit copy paste and make as many as you want. But they decided they were only going to release one, and they got this one rich, crazy dude to buy this in-game item, and now he's got it in his house. You walk into his house, and there's the moon or whatever it is. And more power to him.
Yeah, it wasn't even a really popular game though, was it? It was something quite.
No, it wasn't. It's something like I can't even remember the title of the game. That's how minor it was. Ed, I just wanted to augment what you were saying. What you're right. You can be provocative and beat out the big guys, but I don't know that you necessarily have to be. I'm a kind of guy who goes around and supports the little stores. I won't always buy at Best Buy or Future Shop or the big places to get my stuff. I like to reward the the smaller game shops around town and stuff. So one thing you can do is to go walk that whole path, and I think you're doing it well, to become a indie game dev guy, a media darling, and get a lot of buzz within your immediate industry, and let those people be your mouthpiece, so that when it does become available, in a wider release platform or something more well known like WiiWare, then people have already done that legwork for you.
I mean, one thing with you, Ryan, is that you spend a lot of effort on blog posts for other Flash developers, and I'm thinking, I mean, that's what we all do, but I'm thinking, is that really who we should be talking to? Shouldn't we be trying to get an audience of gamers, players?
Yeah, well, I'm making a mistake. I got to tell you, what I did was I tried to get gamers. I found that I had no idea how to get gamers, but I found that the people who were reading the blog, the initial couple people, were game developers. So then what I did was I started skewing all my material really aggressively towards game developers, and started building up a community, a user base of those people who would visit the site. I'd give them tips and tricks. We'd talk about game development stuff. I'm not too sure if it's the right way to go, but it's just I was meeting a need, and I was serving the audience that was already there, rather than trying to go through the Herculean effort of roping people who weren't there.
Right.
Yeah.
Does anyone have a blog that actually is read by players rather than?
I don't think players are interested in reading blogs in general.
They just want to play the games.
They want to play the games. So your community retention mechanisms are different.
I think a company like Nitro have a really great community of kind of proper fans, and they do it. They never write blog posts. They just put the games out regularly, and
but they got a great library of games that people can talk about. Where our library is very small, and the games don't really last long. Our two big titles that we're working on aren't out yet, so there's nothing to talk about.
Well, then maybe community efforts aren't a big deal.
Not at this point.
But so communities are usually about retention. But there's also the PR side of it, and there's been all sorts of good talks about PR. But getting your name out there and getting more mainstream, I'm not going to say mainstream press, but more mainstream press to actually talk about you and say, oh, here's this exciting thing that this group is doing, or this sounds like a really bizarre concept, I want to talk about that. That's a way of building up interest before you actually release.
That's starting to happen a lot too. A lot of I think Kotaku and other gaming news sites are starting to actually really look at Flash games and review them. I know Jay's Games, they review a lot of Flash games. So.
Oh, absolutely. Well, this is my belief, is that indie game developers are sexy. They're rock stars. They've got interesting personalities. People don't care about products and all that stuff. People are really interested in other people. They want to know who you are. Do you have a girlfriend? What clothing are you wearing? Are you cool? Are you not cool? Did you say something outrageous? And Edmund does a wonderful job at this, and he's a sexy man.
Nice pictures.
Yeah, so you want, I think that's something that not enough indie developers just do. It's like, hey,
cult of personality you're talking about.
The cult of personality, yeah.
Who was the guy who did? Sorry, I was going to say, Tom. Dan, sorry, who was the guy who did the video riff on your blog post? He works at Wonder something or other. I'm forgetting the name of it right now. And he just read my blog post, and then he's obviously a very creative fellow, and he just sort of took that up and ran with it. But
Man, he's got a future. He's a sexy man right there.
And I wonder how many people like me in the first 2 minutes of that thought that was Dan Cook. I'm like, man, Dan Cook is one sexy bastard.
I unfortunately don't look nearly as good as him. I can't do the seductive winking.
No, he's got that eyebrow action down cold.
Yeah.
Iain, what were you saying before?
I was just going to say, about Tom Falk and Newgrounds. They're literally cartoon characters on their website, and I think that works really well for them. It's much better to be a kind of over the top cartoon character than to be a real person. If you want to.
Penny Arcade's a good example of that. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And another one is Ben.
People who see the Penny Arcade guys in real life are like, oh my god, we're not these two good-looking 21-year-old hipsters. What?
Oh, so far from it. Yeah, I mean, and also a lot of times what you'll see what they're doing, they put themselves in their games a lot too, as cameos or in the background or stuff like that. So there you go. You just got to start putting yourself in your games. That's all you got to do.
They do that really well with at Zombie Cow Studios with Ben there, Dan. That they're the star of that game, and Time Gentlemen Please the sequel. And I have no idea if those dudes look the same, but they're pretty pixely in the game, so I imagine not.
It could be girls, all you know.
I was in Understanding Comics, that Scott McCloud book. There's a bit where he's like, would you empathize with me so much if I look like this? And there's I don't know if it's a photo or just a really realistic picture of his face, and you're like, ugh. Because all through the comic you've seen the guy as just two dots for eyes and a mouth.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that applies to game design definitely as well. It's you want to keep your characters quite simply drawn. I think that goes a long way.
I agree. I hate the push to realism. I think it's a really bad direction that people are taking it, and it gets so close to that uncanny valley. Have you guys seen the trailer for A Christmas Carol?
Oh yeah, creepy, right?
Oh, it's hideous.
Well, okay. See, when it comes to the whole realism thing, I'm not so much worried about the whole uncanny valley thing. That looks freaky and weird, and I wish it would stop. But I'm more so concerned about the more you try and make something realistic, the harder it is because people expect a lot more from it. Then, because like Grand Theft Auto or something, people are freaking out over the tiniest details, and it's probably because trying to make it so darn realistic that people can judge on it more.
Is it realistic though? Is it realistic? I don't think it is.
Well, okay.
We used to think the thing is right. When I was a kid, we used to think Mortal Kombat was photorealistic. That was
my gosh.
That was my definition of photorealistic. How did they even do?
It was a photo.
It was. If you look at it now, it's almost pixel art. It's ludicrous.
Well, what I mean is not so much how it really looks real, but I mean if you're building a game that takes place in New York, people are going to be start criticizing it a bit harder because you know what, I live in New York. That's not actually there.
Yeah, there's no invisible wall at 32nd Street.
See, it's stuff like that. I mean, if you're in little like Sonic the Hedgehog or Mario, or going down and jumping on mushrooms, and that's not realistic. So it's not too much to expect from it. But I don't know.
The super realistic stuff gets on majorly shaky territory, especially when it comes to physics. Because if you have something that looks realistic and it doesn't move realistically, or you're running around in this whole open world, and then suddenly you get to a spot where there's an invisible wall.
Yeah.
Or it's just wait, no, you're extra $500,000 in making things look even better and pushing more polys is totally destroyed by one little tech aspect that isn't realistic. And it's what's the point? But it's just the whole bragging rights. It's whoa, you see the graphics.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but even on a simple game Charlie Brooker talks about this on his Games White program. But if during a kind of one of these interactive cutscenes that you get in Half-Life, you can just jump up and down on the spot and no one says anything. You can circle around people and just do all kinds of weird behavior and no one mentions it.
Yeah.
And so I think we've got a long way to go. It's not even, forget physics, interaction with characters and everything, Yeah,
we have a ways to go. But I think people are getting less focused on the graphics, and no one even really comments on it. I remember, back in the 90s, it was just everybody, graphics, did you see those graphics? It was all about the graphics, and no one cared about anything else. And now recently, in the past, 10 years, it's, the physics. Now that's kind of taken a backseat now to, wow, the gameplay. And I think that
finally
something we can be okay, that's legitimate. Now it is the gameplay. And I think the Wii really kind of proved that, where it's I'm not saying that the Wii has super awesome games that are whatever, great gameplay-wise, but it at least the graphics took a back seat, and the success of that system proves that people don't really care about graphics
Or anything.
or.
Oh, now.
But no, you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
it's graphics really don't matter that much anymore, unless it's this super huge blockbuster title like Fallout 3 or something. But then again, if Fallout 3's gameplay wasn't good, no one would care.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, that's pretty cool, and I think we're getting to this, artistic minimalist sort of take on game design, and people are kind of going back and being like, okay, graphics don't matter. That's been proven. Now we can dress things up with graphics and do a cool style and whatever else matters and what people care about, which is the gameplay.
What matters way more than graphics is art direction. I keep thinking about doing stuff in 3D, and 3D looks really old really fast if you do it wrong. But look at the Wind Waker on GameCube. I mean, that game's going to look good for a long, long time. And it's
that game looks fucking great now. Like, I remember just seeing it recently and being like, wow, this looks better than almost everything that I've played recently.
Yeah,
because the style is just unimaginably
it's
awesome.
the style, yeah, it's art direction.
Yeah,
Well, I tried to do the same thing in Time Fuck, where it was like I'm an illustrator, and that's what I do well, and I try to make my games look good. But with Time Fuck, I wanted to see if I could make a game that the graphics should, even though I'm known, and see if I could get away with gameplay. And nobody even comments on the graphics.
They never do.
I did all those graphics in like a weekend.
See, it's because of the gameplay, because that's what's really pulling them in, which matters, really. I mean, Super Mario World, Jesus, that game is still fun. I mean, even now, it's funny how...
Looks good.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's funny how, nowadays, the 2D game thing is starting to come back, it seems, a little bit. I mean, and everyone's kind of looking back and seeing what worked back then, and I don't know, it's...
I mean,
don't we
have Flash to thank for the revival of 2D games?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
I'll go
think
with that.
there's new ideas in Flash games. Everyone thought 2D games were pretty much dead, I think, and there are new ideas in Flash games that were never dreamt of in all the years of the Genesis and the SNES.
Yeah.
Particularly that
It is pretty crazy.
vector flat style has really made a comeback. I was just looking at the latest Pixel Junk stuff, and you see they're basically mainstreaming this Flash art style.
Well, I swear to God that the first time I saw the their game 3, I don't know what it's called now, the game where you shoot out water and lava or
Shooter.
something.
Pixel Junk Shooter, I think.
Okay, Shooter. When I saw that game, I thought that I had done the graphics. I thought that it was one of my games that I was prototyping. I did a game called Guppy, and it looked, swear to God, it looked exactly like something that I'd done. The colors and everything were identical. And I was like, what? What am I seeing? It looks like someone
Get
just
thee to a lawyer.
But it's vector art, and a lot of vector art looks the same, and you do run into limitations when it comes to, if you do vector art without lines, it's going to look like that. And I like vector art, though. People still bitch and moan about it. Like working on Super Meat Boy, which of course has vector art. You get a lot of comments on trailers, people saying, "This looks like a Flash game. I'm not paying money for this." And
Can we find that guy, by the way? Can we find that douchebag? And just...
Yeah, I want that guy to do a voice in my next game. Hey, I'm the main character.
Hey.
Whoa.
What the? Dan has regressed to age 3.
Wrap it up.
Whoa. Oh, hey, what's happening? What's happening? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm right here. My wife just got home.
Oh, that was you. Oh, okay.
Can we hear what your wife thinks about game design, Ed?
Yes, you can actually.
Awesome.
Oh.
Danielle, what do you
This
think
is
about
gonna be
game
great.
design? Think about it. Should I make a zombie game?
Make zombies in the war. That's all.
Zombies in the war, got it.
There you go.
World War II zombie shooter.
I don't know if it's Skype, but your wife sounds like the teacher on Charlie Brown from where I'm sitting. Can I make a
That's
zombie
actually
game?
probably
Womp, 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 womp.
Hey, I will cut you.
Whoa.
That came through loud and clear.
Now, actually, Ed, I think that's kind of interesting that you mentioned the whole like the vector graphics and whatnot. I mean, a lot of people are always complaining, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why everyone kind of looks down on Flash game developers. That oh, it's got that Flash look to it. Oh, you made this in Flash. I mean,
Yeah.
Do you think they like Flash should kind of get more notice and think people might think it's a joke if they didn't really stay away from vector graphics and the typical tools that Flash already offers and did like just original art for everything? Or do you think it's still kind of good to use that stuff?
Well, I mean, I don't really care. I could give a shit about someone bitching, but
I think now we're at the point where if you make a Flash game and you use all bitmap art and it looks really nice, people won't even think it's a Flash game. So we're stuck now.
Like people are going to look at Machinarium and they're going to be like, "What? That's not obviously not a Flash game." But guess what? It is. We're doing a game in modeling clay, and I hope the same effect's going to happen. People are going to be like, "Oh, thank God it's not a Flash game." Well, guess what, suckers?
Yeah. But people aren't going to walk away going, "Okay, Flash games, it's a good, it's a good medium," because they're just not going to equate it with Flash. Because I think now Flash is stuck with this, paint bucket, a few splodges of stickmen, and I think the whole stickmen thing was a really bad move by.
Yeah.
I wish that hadn't happened. Stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think the vector graphics style is going to go away. One of the things that I do is I look at I gain a lot of my inspiration. This probably tells you a lot from greeting cards. So go into a greeting card section and you have about 300 different unique art styles, all just sort of laid out in front of you to peruse. And vector art is all over the place. It's cheap, it's attractive. It may not appeal to the teenage boy that wants to see super realistic nipples, but it appeals to pretty much every other demographic out there. There's that demographic term. But,
sorry, I just want to put in that our next game is actually going to be called Super Realistic Nipples.
Perfect. That'll probably sell quite well. But I don't think the vector stuff is going away. If you actually look at the history of art, big flat shapes have been around for a long time. It's a totally valid art style.
I think
even if anything, its use in the mainstream is just going to legitimize the Flash style.
Yeah.
There's just using the mainstream.
There's a style that I don't like, which is like I call it like American manga, but it's like manga or anime, but drawn a little bit wrong, like nothing quite lines up.
And it's all the eyes. There's something about the triangular eyes that people use.
It's just drawn wrong, right?
Yeah, every amateur webcomic I've ever seen uses horrible spiky hair and just badly drawn eyes. And yeah, that's it. It's Americanized.
And also
manga.
the skull isn't like a sphere. Take the top bit of a skull, it's not spherical. It's like just all mangled out of shape. And
I'm so glad you said that. I thought I was going nuts. I thought it was just me.
I hate that. There's a couple of really good books: How to Draw Manga Part 1 and How to Draw Manga Part 2. Yeah. Oh no, How to Draw Anime and Game Characters. Sorry, they're really
really
good.
We should just buy those books and hand them out free at conventions as like a service, public service. Go learn to draw, please, for God's sakes.
Yeah, but a lot of people like it though, especially in America. I mean, since they're always pushing anime on the TV all the time.
Yeah, but done properly, not done half-assed, right?
Yeah.
Not skewy and just not quite right. I love anime, and that's why I don't like to see that kind of style, done badly.
See, I don't like anime, so I hate both anime and anime done wrong. It's all wrong to me, and it's just a big old boatload of wrong.
Huh? Hey. Sorry.
Wow.
I also don't like anime. I don't like that style at all either.
Ninja Scroll.
Yeah, most people don't seem to like that style too much. The Americanized anime look, if you will. Yeah,
it's kind of all overdone. I don't like anything that's being reused over and over again. I don't like anime style. Period. It's boring.
Yeah. Although, Dan, I think it's kind of interesting that you said that you look to was it greeting cards.
Absolutely.
I've never heard that ever. So.
Try it sometime.
I can see that. I can see that in Bunny.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, yeah, you're right. It's got that look to it. Huh. So that's your secret, huh? Greeting cards. Interesting.
It's cheaper than buying an art book.
We're doing, like I said, for this Interrupting Cal trivia game, it takes place in a diner, so I'm trying to lift as much stuff. It's 50s style, so I'm trying to lift a bunch of stuff from Old Navy and A&W, restaurants, because they're boring all that 50s stuff, that 50s pop art weird. There's a lot of weird things where they make the lines offset from the fills because I guess it was the printing process. It was screwed up. It wasn't always accurate. They couldn't exactly match the black print to the color underneath. So we've got a couple of books and we're looking at a bunch of posters and old Navy posters or that sort of thing.
Yeah, I know the style you're talking about. They pulled a lot from, and Ren and Stimpy pulled a lot from the 50s.
Yes,
off print style.
Big time.
But there's a lesson in this, which is steal, but don't steal from your own backyard. Steal from another section of town or another area, and then it will come across as being incredibly original. If you
think about the number of art styles that haven't been done in Flash games, it's just ripe. There's like pick anything, and you just don't pick it from Newgrounds, and instantly you differentiate yourself.
Yeah.
I think it should be just a rule of thumb for everybody who's doing games. Don't do it in space, all right? Because that's been done. If you're doing a game, don't do zombie themed. Don't do pirate themed. Don't do vampire themed. Stay away from the things that have been done because it's actually probably going to aid you because you will stand out more. And then style wise, of course, try to come up with a new style, or like you were saying, like reuse an old style that isn't in the spotlight currently. Stylized things, of course, go over way better than non-stylized and more fun, more pleasing to the eye. People things that it's the whole idea is people don't know what they want. And if you got a bunch of people in the room together and said, okay, tell us exactly what you want, we're going to make this perfect game, and then you did exactly what they said, no one would play that. Because people want what they don't want, they don't know yet. They want the thing that doesn't exist. And that's the important thing. It's like you're not going to come up with the next Grand Theft Auto unless you innovate and make an open world game. But like you were saying, like the difference between like stealing an idea and kind of like reinventing an existing idea. I think one of the most interesting one was John Carmack. The inspiration behind Wolfenstein was basically Gauntlet, but through the eyes of the guy. That's all he said. That was the whole game. It's like, okay, I want to make a game like Gauntlet, but I just want the perspective to be changed. And that's all he essentially did. It's really basic, and that's basically the same game, except just perspective change. And it's not hard to take an existing genre and innovate it. And
Warrior needs food badly. What I like to do is I like to take serve something to people that they already know, but serve it to them in such a weird, different way. This is like, oh my god, this is not my father's zombie game or whatever. Like the zombie game that we're trying to put out now is called Inflatable Zombies. It's just because we're doing this balloon shooter game. It was completely generic, and I thought, oh god, I can't release a balloon shooter game just to support our new high scores thing. So I thought, all right, zombie games are popular. Is this going to work as a zombie game? No, probably not. Then I thought, wait a second. What if the balloons are inflatable zombies? So it's this completely ridiculous game where, of course, zombies, helium-filled zombies that are floating harmlessly through the air are not a threat to human beings at all. But that's what we're giving you. Shoot them down anyway.
What if the balloons had a little kid in them?
Oh.
You know what I was thinking, actually?
That's the point.
On Friday morning, I was thinking, how quickly can I get a Balloon Boy game out?
Somebody did it the next day.
Oh, someone's already done it. Good on them.
Oh, someone's already done it. Yeah, it's all over Twitter. I almost said all over the Twitter, making me sound like a friggin' 7-year-old. It's all over the Twitter.
And what was their business model? Did they have some kind of ads in it or something?
I imagine it would be ads and just try to get bazillions of people to click the link.
Also, like something else that I've been noticing a lot too with Flash games is that they've been like with the 2D games, they've been like creating like 2D cameras. So like when things get intense, so like zoom in like they do on some of the console games, zoom in on the character. Like I was playing like one Flash game, like you play as a barbarian or something like that, and they got like the background, and then every time he like clobbers or beats someone, the camera zooms in real close and you see blood everywhere, and then it zooms back out.
Does it lag? Did it lag when it zoomed in?
As long as I didn't have it on full screen, the quality was low. No, it didn't lag at all.
Because it's a hard thing to do. I had zooming in one of my older games, Serious Peace Shy, and it was a bitch because when it zoomed, it totally lagged you zooming effectively unless you're doing minimalistic graphics.
I don't know. I think things like zooming didn't used to work, but I think now with modern, dual core computers, it works fine. Yeah. I do zooming on a lot of my games and different dynamic camera things.
I was just playing a graphic adventure that used zooming, and it was so useless. Like there was no reason why I needed to see that up close, because it didn't change. There was nothing new. It was just like, look at the cool zooming effect we can do, everybody.
Well, the thing is, you almost never want the zoomed in view because you can see less of the area, right? So
yeah, exactly.
It's actually much harder to play.
Well, that's why we think you want to, just like with anything, you can abuse it. But I mean, if you do it right, and like you can make things seem really intense. So, but if not, then, well, why'd you do it? But,
where did it come from? Was it CSI? Like, where are people getting this zoom idea from?
I don't know.
I think 2D
It's a
camera
polish
is
effect.
really old
It's a
idea,
polish
right?
effect.
Polish effect,
It's-
yeah.
I think it's an old idea.
Because I know
Beautiful
I've seen
Joe.
the whole thing where, like, just before you make the big kill, it slows down to super slow motion, and you see.
Yeah, that's a polish effect too. Yeah, no, like we're polishing up Super Meat Boy for the IGF, and one of the things that we're doing is scrolling and zoom effects. So like when you finish the level, it zooms in just a bit more because it's pretty zoomed out, and it's just polish. I mean, and then what you guys are seeing is polish. They see it done in games and they want to reuse it, but don't understand when and where.
Yeah.
And then it's just off. It's like, why? What are you showing me? What is it zooming in for? It's zooming in so the perspective is slightly different, so it doesn't look as boring as zoomed out, same static camera always. But
And again, I think that goes back to who's making Flash games. I think it's 14-year-olds wearing, daddy's clothes and not knowing how to use these techniques and tools. Sorry, 14-year-olds. Like, I really apologize, 14-year-olds. Being 14's awesome. I loved it.
What I hope, though,
honestly,
is that,
if you're a
what I hope,
14-year-old,
though, is that
okay, game.
What I hope is that people who are still, who are developing Flash games at 14 actually stick with it and don't end up giving up. Because I'm sure that a lot of the people who are making Flash games at 14 aren't going to stick with it, and they're going to end up, going into banking or farming or some other trade.
Well, I
Again, not to diss farming.
mean, well, yeah, I mean,
Not to diss farming, not to diss anything, but I just think that, if that's what you're interested in when you're a kid, there's probably people telling you, you can't do this. This isn't a job.
yeah, and it also kind of goes back to just, I mean, they always make this, the console, I guess, development world or whatever, so just glamorous and so amazing. That's the place that you have to get into if you want to do games, and that's like, that's the place to be. And the Flash thing, I mean, everyone it's still the whole, it's a complete joke. You want to work for Nintendo, you want to work for, Activision, that's where the games are being made, not Flash. I mean, come on. So that's
Yeah,
why
but like you said off the top, Ed, you've made 20 games in the past 4 years. I think I've had a hand in 50 since 2000 when I started working at a kids broadcaster. I can't imagine having been at one of these big mills where I was just one cog in the wheel and I did one specific job for 4 years on one game. And I spend the same amount of time, 7 years, and I've got 2 credits to my name. I couldn't. I'd much rather do fast iteration, get a bunch of ideas out the door, find out what works and what doesn't work really, really quickly. I think that makes you a much more well-rounded designer.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to learn. I mean, even from there are of course moments in. So for me, my income wise, I'll usually release like a PC game or whatever, and that'll keep me going for a few years, and then I'll do Flash games, prototype ideas, and make random whatever else as it goes and trickles off, and then I've got to make something else. But the time spent when I'm working on, when I'm not working in Flash or whatever else, and I take a break and I'm working on something for 6+ months, I feel like not learning sucks, and I really wish, like even now, like I had to. So Time Fuck was done like 2 months ago, and since then I've just been working on Super Meat Boy, and I know I've got 5 more months that I'm not supposed to be working on any Flash stuff, But there's this thing that's like I so desperately want to do more games because I have these ideas that I want to do, but now I can't, and I feel like I'm just not growing as fast as I should be growing. And I will stick to the fact I really think that if you want to be a good game developer, get into Flash and make as many games as you can as possible, because you will just learn so much.
As many different games as you can.
Yes.
Don't.
Well, you're gonna get bored. If you make the same game over and over again, you're just gonna get bored of it. I don't see people just constantly juicing it, but
a bunch of people
you will
make
learn a
all
lot.
this. Don't just make an Escape the Room game and then the sequel to your Escape the Room game.
Yeah, no. I'd go as far as to saying, like, if you're just getting out of high school and you have some experience in Flash and you've made some games and you're thinking about going to game school, don't. Save your money and live off of your games and make 20 games in that 4-year period. You will learn so much more. So much more, and you'll get your foot in the door. And if you're serious about game development and you really want to do games, you will do just fine.
Yeah, And also, I would say that I mean, that's also like a test too. I mean, that way you'll be able to see if game development is really what you want to do. Because so many people, get in there and like, oh, I'm so excited. I've been playing like I played D&D when I was younger. I want to make games so badly. Final Fantasy's so awesome. Oh wait, no, I don't want to do any of this. I gotta actually.
No, I live in Santa Cruz, and we have UCSC, University of Santa Cruz is here, of course, and they just opened up a game design course. So I go up there, and sometimes I do talks and whatever else, and it's just kind of funny that of course, the mentality of, hey, I'm going to college for something, okay? Now, video games are a legit, job that I can get. And that sounds fun, so I'm going to do it. I don't care. And it's like, I just want to get a job that I can at least brag to my friends about. That sounds cool. I'm a game designer. But then there's, of course, the other people who are like really passionate about game design. And one perfect example of this is, I don't know if you guys know who Tyler Glale is, but
Closure.
Okay, he did Closure and he did Ether with me. Now, I've been pushing him to leave college because he's been going to college he just finished his first year. Now, that's a perfect example of somebody who does not need this. He does not need to go to college. If he wasn't going to college, he would have probably made a few more really awesome games, and hopefully he'll get funding for a console title port of Closure, and he'll be able to just quit entirely, which I'm sure will happen. But it's just like, that's a perfect example of somebody who, if you're a prolific game designer and you can design a lot of games and you have that drive behind you to do so, there's no reason for you to go into debt to go to college to get a piece of paper that says you can do something. I'm sure, you could easily cut out your own niche and just do it yourself on your own terms.
In the defense of college, however, let me say that if you are the type of learner who can't open code and break it and learn from that, and if you can't learn from a book, the type of person who needs interpersonal interaction to be able to learn, college is a good way to go. If you're the type of person whose parents will only bankroll you if you go to college, you can't get any other support from your parents other than that, college is a good way to go. And if you're the type of person who wants to I went to college with a bunch of people who didn't really go anywhere, but in certain schools, if you choose the right school, you might be in with a group of people who form your social group, and they're the people you sort of pair off with, or form alliances with. There's another advantage to college. So in college,
there's no reason why you can't do both. I mean, one of the benefits of college is you gain a large, at least a liberal arts education. You get psychology and economics and all these things that are incredibly useful to game design. For my last 2 years of college, I was working at Epic full time and going to college, and that's just the way it was. It actually worked out quite nicely.
I only speak from both. When it comes, but it is expensive. I don't know. Of course, I'm only speaking from my personal experience and whatever interaction I've had with people who, every single person that I've worked with has dropped out of college. Every successful person that I know has dropped out of college. I don't know. I mean, and then the people that I know that finish college are very unhappy and in debt. and not doing
the statistics actually prove you otherwise. People who go to college tend to, on average, be happier and they make more money. But that's just statistics.
Here in the UK and Europe in general, it's also not that expensive. It's mostly paid for by the government. So I would say go take advantage of it while you can.
Yeah, no, I would agree that, of course, it's college is not for everyone. But I'm one of my pet peeves is the idea that everybody needs to go to college and that college is best for everyone. Well, I think it's maybe best for not as many people as you'd think. Because honestly,
I was reading a college brochure that said something different.
Yeah, no, it's just
one thing I would say is that if you're going to go to college, university, game programming or design is not actually a bad thing to choose, because at least it's a trade and a tangible hard skill.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
which ultimately, if you graduate history, that's not going to get you a job as a historian. So
I guess I'm speaking more along the terms. I mean, the people that I talk to and the friends of mine are all independent as well. So this isn't going to apply to the majority of people. But I'm mostly speaking from an independent standpoint. if you want to be independent, then don't go to college.
Well, keep in mind too that there's more to life than just your career. There's your social group, and then there's your need if you're if you swing that way to meet, marry, and fall in love, and that's where your peer group is when you're that age, is in college, and that's where a lot of people meet the people that they pair off with. Maybe not so much anymore in this generation, but it's an option. That's where the honeys is. College. That's where the honeys is.
No, I mean, yeah, honestly, of course, and we work in an environment where not many of us are that socially awesome.
Yeah, video games.
So yeah, I understand that. I understand that side of things, and I understand that it is important to, as a social, to get social skills and meet people and talk to people who have your interests and all that sort of stuff too. I'm just preaching from my experience is all.
Oh, I hear you. I had a horrible experience. In college. It was brutal, but I wouldn't rule it out entirely just because I've seen other people not have horrible experiences. And because I may end up teaching college next year. I have a hidden agenda.
But it's just also too, I hate it when people will always say, they're going to college and don't have an idea of what they want to do. That's like the worst thing to do, but gonna do what you do.
That's a waste of money.
Yeah, you want to at least get your foot in the water. If you want to do game design and you think that out of high school you're just going to jump into game design and you've never programmed anything and whatever else, and you decided you're going to invest in 4 years of game design courses, take a summer to try to make a game in the Game Maker. And if you don't like it, then don't do that.
Yeah, go stock shelves at the supermarket for a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Or RPG Maker 2000. That's what I used. I used to love that thing.
I used Click and Play in high school. Yeah.
Or Flash. I hear that's easy to learn.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah,
I heard that too.
yeah.
I hear Flash is for losers.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it's true.
It's funny. We look down on RPG Maker like people look down on Flash, but maybe that's the cool stuff.
Yeah, probably. Oh.
We're just on the pecking order somewhere, aren't we? Below iPhone and above RPG Maker.
Well, actually, that's let's just do that topic real fast because it's almost 2 hours. iPhone. I'm sure you all heard about the recent announcements from Adobe.
Sorry, what's an iPhone?
What do you guys think about that?
I only got an iPhone last week, but I think it's great. I'm kind of going through the thing that people went through 2 years ago when they came out or whatever. I think it's a cool thing.
So the thing about the iPhone is the distribution isn't there. Like, the ability to get large numbers of people downloading your application just currently does not exist. It is a very, very limited distribution system. You're either on the top 10 lists, or you're or top hundreds list, whatever, but you're not. So it has all the aspects of a massive portal that owns the entire marketplace that's controlled by Apple. With none of it's very difficult for you to break outside of like the Apple distribution system. Yeah.
Online, we have fantastic distribution, but what we lack is what the App Store offers, which is the ability to easily charge money for your work. So if we
don't lack that. Not anymore.
It's harder.
We do.
It's harder because of people's perceptions, though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that the Facebook games have proven that it's not harder, though, right? It's just as easy.
Yeah, and if you look at the iPhone, people are not able to charge actually all that much. So prices have dropped dramatically.
But I mean, one thing the iPhone does is they get them past that initial barrier of, actually whip your credit card out of your pocket and consciously think about spending money on something. All I do when I download something on the App Store is punch in my password because, it already has all my credit card information. Every single time you try to sell something online, if you're not using a network like MulchiCoins, you have to force the player to whip out that credit card again and really think about, should I be buying this or should I be buying food for my 8 children? And that's a real drawback that we have.
They don't need to.
I'm not a huge fan of iPhone stuff, mostly because it's
surprise.
Yeah, sorry. No, it's just from a design standpoint, it's of course very limiting. You've dealing with the touchscreen and motion controls, and I know you can basically program in a D-pad and buttons on the screen, but that doesn't feel right. And I don't know, the games are horrible. It's just one of those things where like it has a stick on it as well, where I go and be like, if I tell somebody I do independent games, they say, "Oh, you make iPhone games?"
Yeah.
And no, I don't. No, I don't make fart apps and the bottom of the barrel crap games. I mean, honestly, like.
Oh no, this sounds exactly the mirror of what people say about Flash. I'm sorry.
Well, what's
Yeah, no,
interesting
but that's what I was just gonna say. It's the iPhone market is exactly the same as the crap that they churn out in Flash. That it's just like.
Well, the interesting thing about the iPhone market, if you actually look at the top games, yes, there are some fart applications and that sort of thing, but people are spending immense amounts of money. You have large publishers spending massive budgets to do high-quality 3D games on the iPhone right now. So if I was an independent developer, I look, crappy distribution, competition from lots of large publishers, inability to get on the top 10 list.
It's a lottery.
Low
It's
prices.
basically a lottery.
Yeah, it's not a good market.
Well, I'll give you a view from the other side. Since again we're a fee for service company, and a lot of what we do is dictated by the services that we can offer to our clients. There's a real cachet here in Toronto anyway with the iPhone. If they mention it in this newspaper we have, this national newspaper or city newspaper, I don't know, called the Globe and Mail, then all sort of like the old guard goes, iPhone. I was just reading in the Globe and Mail yesterday. So if we get a game on the iPhone, no matter how good or how badly it does, how much or how little money we make, if somebody calls me up and says, "Can you develop an iPhone app?" I say yes, then I'm suddenly earning other people's money.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. There's a bubble there. There's a perception thing, but
I'm not sure it is a bubble, because I think that the iPhone is going to dominate the market for years. Because if you use the iPhone and then you use another smartphone, the other ones just seem wrong. They just seem like broken.
Here's a wonderful little thing. Currently, at least, Apple makes money off the hardware. They just cover their costs for selling apps. The only benefit that the apps have right now, it's a check mark on the box for the iPhone so that Apple can sell more hardware. And they happen to have a checkbox that other people do not have, but Apple sells hardware. That's what they do. Software is just an excuse for them to sell hardware.
So you mean they're taking a bath because of all the approvals that they have to do on the apps that don't sell?
The approval system, the back end, the amount of stuff that they have to give to the people for bandwidth and all that sort of stuff, to the networks. It's if you actually break down the numbers, they're actually not making all that much money off of it. We like to think Apple's making huge amounts of money off the iPhone apps. But they're making the money off the hardware. So if you actually look, like, the question I have is, are the goals of the platform aligned with the goals of the developer? In the case of the iPhone, they are not. All they care is, they don't care if you actually make money. Like, what they care is that they sell hardware. So in that particular ecosystem going forward, it's like, well, are they going to do nice things for the developers? As much as necessary to keep them around so that, a few actually make reasonable apps. But other than that, as long as a few people make reasonable apps, who cares if the rest starves? It's not a big deal. It's no skin off our back. We got our checkbox on our iPhone box, so we're happy.
I think, do you guys, I don't know, I can't talk much about it because of things I signed, but you guys might know stuff coming out in the next 2 years that is going to be competitive to the iPhone, but more game related. Maybe you guys don't know what I'm talking about.
Do tell, and then Joseph can edit it out later.
I can.
But I mean, it doesn't. It's kind of a no-brainer to think that, okay, the iPhone's doing really well, and there's an app store. App stores are cool now. Steam is popular. Xbox Live is popular. All games are going digital in the next 10 years. The next systems are going to be all digital, downloaded games and whatever else. There's going to be stuff happening that competes with the iPhone in the next couple of years that I think we'll all
the DSi and PSP Go are already,
Yeah, exactly. No, in the new PSP is the first all digital system, and it's like all these systems are going to go digital. It's all going to be app store, style stuff, and of course, iPhone's going to be buzzing for quite a while. But I think the next year and a half will be even bigger because I think more people will have access to it. But all I'm saying is there are, because of the market, because of the App Store, because of the success of Xbox Live, we're gonna be making the move. It's gonna be all digital, in the next 10 years, and there's gonna be more options for us. And since we have experience, that's gonna be good, of course.
Here's my real question: is it best to go with like the iPhone that has all the attention and all the exposure, or is it a good business decision to pick like a smaller device that's less popular? Let's say the Palm Pre, off the top of my head. Pick the Palm Pre and make a decent game for that, knowing that you're not going to get the potential numbers that you will in the iPhone, but knowing that those people are really hard up for games and are going to buy your game. You know what I'm saying?
I'd say honestly, well, if you can do both, do both, but. If there's a new system that's coming out and you know about it, like, of course, as a developer for Nintendo and Microsoft, I'm talking to them about what are you doing next? I want to be a launch title on those systems. Because if you get launch title, and if you get on the top 100, whatever, of the next big app store, you're going to make shitloads of money. It's very important to be early in the game. And now it's late in the game with iPhone, and it's really a roll of the dice where you got to be careful how much time you spend on your game, because
the people who were there day one are just rolling. That's where all the success stories came from.
I mean, where are we with Flash? Are we early in the game or are we late in the game?
I think Flash is pretty stable at this point.
I think you should start looking to Unity.
I don't know about Unity. Did you guys hear about I don't know if that's public either. Never mind. Fuck.
Don't worry, I can edit it out. It's okay. No.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't want to.
It's fine. No, it's understandable.
I just don't want to upset people. I don't. This isn't like I don't. I'm not. This isn't NDA stuff. It's just other developers that used Unity that aren't doing too well. And I
know who you're talking. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. That wasn't Unity's fault though. That was their decision on the model they were going to follow and their 4-day work week. You know what I mean? Like that's just the way they decided to use the tool.
A company, the B website.
What?
Yeah, rhymes with
the
Hearst.
website beginning with B.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Are they not doing too good?
They're actually they're gonna decide to go in a different direction that hopefully will do better.
Oh.
Is that a nice way to put it?
Creatively, they're doing great.
Sure.
Yeah, they're producing stuff for sure.
But you can't eat creative.
Yeah. No, I think
that they're at the point where they could just charge money though, and they would.
Well, they are charging money.
They are. That's the problem.
Yeah, they're finding that they're not getting the money that they charge.
I know with their situation, it's kind of hard for them to go. They went from not charging and then to charging. I don't know if that's not a good direction. I don't think, but
no.
But I don't know. I think if they did multiplayer games, like honestly, I'm going to go back to that again. I really think that the future of a lot of it seems like such a no-brainer. The future of online gaming is actual online gaming with people online with other people, and I think that's where the market's going to move towards. Once I don't know why people aren't moving there. I think it's just that it just takes more time.
We're moving there.
Keep moving there. Because honestly, I think it'd be really fun. I think more. Even like the guy that I worked with for years, Alex Austin, worked on this game. He's been working on this game called A New Zero, and it's this just online multiplayer flight simulation type joust game. It's 3D, and it's really, really people actively playing right now. But if that game was in like Unity, I feel like it would just destroy. I feel like it's just as a designer, me and my friends always joke about like any game that you have. It doesn't matter how horrible it is. If you make it co-op and you're playing with a friend, it makes it a million times more fun. And I think that's true with almost everything. It's you don't need this crazy, spectacular, innovative game in order to make it fun and compelling if it's multiplayer, especially if it's done well. And I think that I wish more people would do multiplayer games.
Well, they're starting to abuse that in the mainstream. I mean, they're tacking on multiplayer to everything. So
yeah, but I mean, honestly, it makes it more fun. The past, I don't know what was the last game. The last game that I bought and played. I mean, honestly, I only buy console games now that I can play with my wife. And me and her, we have nothing to play until Mario comes out in November. The last game we got was Resident Evil 5. We played through that, and of course we play Rock Band. And it's like, I think that's important. I think co-op games are very important, like Gears of War and that sort of stuff. And even though I wasn't a huge fan of Gears of War, especially the second one, but it was still something that I got to play with my wife, and something you play with your friends, and those social experiences I think are proven, especially with Rock Band. Like that game did really well.
There's a key to what you're talking about, though. The game we're developing is multiplayer, but you're talking about multiplayer same room.
It doesn't have to be same room though. Like you could
But
still
I think
do a co-op game.
there's a huge advantage that you get to same room. What I do to test my game is I put people in the same room and they play it and they have an absolute blast. But I'm not positive that people are having as much fun when it's just them solo in a room playing, against somebody who's in a different room, across the world. I don't know
It's a totally different social experience. Like we split.
But like, do you guys play Left 4 Dead? No,
I get tired.
I did.
It's the zombie thing. I can kind of get tired of that fast. But anyway,
well, Left 4 Dead was legit.
yeah.
Like point.
In fact, it was
really
too
well
legit to quit.
Yeah, exactly. It was too legit. But no, the thing that really was awesome about it was it had an online co-op and non-co-op multiplayer, and you could you talk to the other players in headsets and whatever else. And I did both, co-op in the same room and then co-op remotely, and it was almost identical as long as you could hear the other person. And
remove that headset. Like it's so much more difficult to do the whole headset thing with Flash. If you took the headset away from Left 4 Dead, how much are you robbing?
No, I hear you. But I'm just saying
also though,
it's a possibility.
Also, we don't even have the two joypads thing. We share a keyboard, which is like uncomfortable at best, really.
There's a deeper issue going on. One of the things you find if you start releasing a lot of multiplayer games is there's a point at which the market becomes saturated for synchronous multiplayer games. Just some random numbers. So for MMOs, your concurrency rate is about 1 out of 10 people is online at any one time. So you tend to have if you have a group of friends, 10 people, you're pretty much guaranteed that maybe there's one other person, or if you have a group of 20 people in a guild, another person is going to be around that you can play with. And of course, schedules play into this as well. With console games, it gets even worse. It's about 1 out of 25 people is online at one time. So your chances of playing with your friends goes down quite a bit. So, which is why you see in console games, you tend to see a lot of play with strangers type gameplay. The other thing that you end up seeing is in Flash games, it's 1 out of 250 people of a portal are online at any one time.
Wow.
So your chance of actually getting friends online is much, much lower. And the saturation point for the number of synchronous multiplayer games that a portal community can support is surprisingly low.
Let me ask you this though, Dan: is the what we're planning on doing with our trivia game is that no matter what portal the trivia game is on, everybody's connecting to the same server. So I'm wondering if that will help at all.
That helps. It all comes down to concurrency rates, right?
Right.
Do you get enough people playing at enough time? And one of these things that happens is there's network effects. A game that is popular will tend to have a longer retention because there's lots of people around. Now you can fake that. You can put in AI bots and that sort of thing to give.
Or you can pay India.
Or you can pay India. You can have the illusion of more people. But there's a reason why asynchronous games are so popular on Facebook. It's not an accident. It's not that they're incapable of doing synchronous games, though some of them are. It's the fact that particular play model fits this sort of intermittent, hey, I'm going to pop in, try something out, and then pop back. This sort of behavior of the actual customers. So something to think about when you're designing multiplayer activities, because I completely agree with what you guys are saying. This
is probably the reason why there aren't so many multiplayer games out there. I mean, we kind of argued back and forth and proven, like, if we were all a team together and we were throwing out ideas and we basically just vetoed multiplayer because it's too complicated and there's all these different things. I mean, I would be convinced right now from what I've heard to be like, maybe I will make non-multiplayer next game and push this back a bit, because you do run into a lot of problems, and we've brought up a lot of issues.
Just like Dan said off the top, though, the lower the barrier to entry, the more crap you get. So that's exactly why we're doing a multiplayer game, is we want to be one of the brave, the few, the proud.
Yeah. Well, I my hat's off to you.
Also though, you want to do the thing that you think maybe other people can't do, because that gives you an advantage.
Exactly.
If it's a technical barrier and you think you can crack it, and to be honest, it's not that hard.
I like to say that premium Flash games require premium developers. It's if you're just a script kiddie and you can't hack it, then you're not going to be able to participate. And that's unfortunately a reality of the market. Now, you have these third parties like Mochi and a whole bunch of other folks who are desperately building, things to enable lower tier developers to participate, but that's going to take a little while.
I think the thing with Mochi though is they spend, I think, they're awesome. I don't want to say anything against them, but they seem to spend a lot of time focusing on the developers. But what they really need to do is, get better.
Get that audience.
Get the CPMs up.
Yeah.
Because CPMs are just, they're just too low, aren't they? Really, like.
Well, that's the advertising. That's advertising for you.
Hey, Dan, I got a quick question. I mean, okay, what about? I know this is kind of like taking a chance with it, but what about bots? I mean, can't you would that not go well if you just, that way you always have someone to play with?
So there's something that really, really interesting thing happens in the human brain. If they think they're playing with another real person, that it's a completely different set of psychology. As soon as it gets out that you're playing with bots, if that does get out, then people won't be having as much fun. But when they think they're playing with real people, then it's like there's studies on this. Multiplayer games are more fun than single-player games. When you compare these games across multiple titles, you do the studies, you ask people which is more fun, and they will consistently rate the good multiplayer games higher in terms of fun than the single-player games.
I think the thing with the bots thing is I don't really think you need to deceive people because you only need to use bots to
you can call them bots.
Spaces. I mean, like we did bots on Zwok, but if you think about it, right, on Zwok there was normally about kind of 200 people online at any one time, and the room is 6 people. So almost all the rooms were full most of the time, and there would just be the odd room which had a few spaces filled by bots.
Well, this is why I'm thinking that it might be more worth the time and money to pay India to play instead of pay to develop bots, because it's a feature, right? Like it's going to take us, time and money to develop this whole bot thing and the logic behind it. I'd rather just, and I keep saying India, I don't know, it could be India, it could be 4-year-old girls from wherever, but as long as I've got real people in there answering questions, I think that might be money well spent. And in your example of Zwok, if you've got rooms that can only hold 6 people, that creates a scarcity thing, an exclusivity thing, and sort of like a nightclub atmosphere. You can't get in a game, well, you know what, you're in line, you wait.
It was pretty funny that I don't know how many of you guys actually played Timefuck, but the original design that I had on paper behind it that I scrapped later on was the game was supposed to be a co-op multiplayer game that paired you up with another player, which was supposed to be you from the future. So you'd both be interacting, and the whole time you were thinking that somebody else was playing and giving you these weird messages and kind of fucking with you, but it was actually just there was no multiplayer online at all, and that was part of the game, was the illusion of another player. And your interaction between it was just supposed to be a psychological, fuck up thing. But when I scrapped it later on, I still might do something like that. But I think,
now you've blown it. Now everyone knows.
Have you guys played a game called Shark Runners?
Never heard of it.
Never heard of that.
So sharkrunners.com, highly recommended. It's an advert game for Discovery Channel, and they said we have all these sharks that we're tracking because we're shark researchers and we do Shark Week and all that good stuff. We're going to put tracking devices on them, and we're going to track real sharks.
Oh.
And we're going to put a map up, and we're going to give you a virtual boat, and then you can go out and you can meet up with these real sharks and do these various different types of dives and collect research and get money for doing research and all that sort of thing. But the attraction of it is it's real sharks. And there's real data from real sharks, and it plays in real time. So you send your boat across to look at the sharks. It's going to take you 4 hours to get there, that sort of thing. But what's interesting about it is if you tell that to people, they get really excited about it. But then you tell them, oh, by the way, the data that you're seeing is actually just recorded data. And they just play it in a loop. They've got a month worth of shark data, and they just play it in a loop over time. Then people suddenly they lose interest. So you
killed the magic.
You killed the magic. So having that illusion there is very important. As game designers, we want to think like, how can we create that illusion of reality?
No, that's a great point. And that's one of the things that's missing from a lot of games, and I think a lot of game designers miss that the magic aspect. Or the withholding aspect. the idea of creating an endless experience and not showing limitations. With me, like I'm not a huge fan of World of Warcraft, mostly because of course, the addictive aspects and whatever else. But I did play it with my wife for a while, and the moment I went online and found out what the formulas were as far as the percentage drop of what item where, completely destroyed the game. The game's magic was completely gone. And just like Animal Crossing, like I remember playing that with my wife, and the moment we went into the store and looked into the book and saw the possibilities and saw the limitations of the furniture you could get, it was destroyed. And it's just like, it's that magic that's so important. It's just so vital for a compelling video game, especially a lasting one, is to create this illusion that the game could possibly last forever and doesn't have any limitations. And it's definitely something to play around with too, and I think all of us I think we should all focus on that too.
That has got to be incredibly difficult to achieve, though. I mean,
I don't think so. I think it's just the art of withholding. Of course, once people do find it out and they find the formulas, they're going to those formulas. But I think if you were to make like almost a semi-dynamic online experience, and I don't know have you guys played Spelunky?
Yeah,
I've seen screenshots of it. Yeah.
Splunky is an amazing. It's like it's a game for game designers that game designers I think will appreciate more than anybody else. Amazing game. It's a dynamically generated, like platforming, awesome game. It's
based on Spelunky, right?
It's not completely. I mean, it's not anything really like it other than that you're in the cave, but it's a play off of the idea.
It's a play off of like NetHack style games, roguelike games.
Yeah, a dynamically generated environment, and I think he did it perfectly. He creates this total magical situation that you could play thousands and thousands and thousands of times without remembering, all the different sections, and even not see these super rare items and whatever else. So he makes a compelling experience that lasts indefinitely, and that's going to be coming out on Xbox. And I think that is proof that it's not that super hard to do something like this. And I think it's just, game designers not thinking outside the box.
It's funny when you say that, because that the whole procedurally generated dungeon thing is what turns me off of a game. I like a discrete experience. When I played, do you guys know that Disgaea game?
Yeah.
So they were, the popular RPGs, Japanese RPGs, and you'd go in and you would actually go inside a weapon to upgrade it, and inside the weapon there would be 100 levels, and there were and you could go inside a potion, you could go inside a pair of shoes and burn through 100 levels to upgrade the shoes, or upgrade the potion and drink it once, and and then it's done, and you've spent you can spend 60 hours just going through the potion dungeons, but they were all randomly generated, and I thought, well, that's not special. Nobody's created something just for me.
Well, that was a boring random generation. I mean, that was a random tile based. You should seriously check out Spelunky and play it for a while, and you'll understand. It's the art of random generation. So the game always looks and feels different. You don't know what to expect. You don't know what's going to happen, and then also withholding when it comes to rarity. So there's basically a percentage chance that you don't know of you finding an item in the wall or whatever else that makes the experience even more compelling. And then on top of that, it's really hardcore and you die a lot. So your experiences never last. A game never lasts unless you're amazingly awesome. It never lasts for more than 10 or 15 minutes. A 10 or 15 minute run in Spelunky is awesome and you feel really good about it. And it's just this perfect formula that withholds just enough. I still haven't beaten that game, and I don't know all the stuff that will happen in the last chapter, and I'm working my way there still, and I've been playing for 3 months. And it's still compelling. It's just I just recently found this vampire thing that makes it so when I drink their blood basically and refill my health that I'd never seen for a month. And it just appeared randomly when I killed this guy. And it's just so there's super rare items and all this sort of stuff that keeps the game going forever, and this is a formula that I believe is proven in Spelunky that I think more especially in the Flash world, in a lot of legitimate Facebook apps or whatever else, this is an endless game experience that doesn't require multiplayer to be compelling. And I think that I wish more people would do it. But I guess dynamically generated environments is something that's pretty complicated. But it's something I'd love to do. I mean, I'd really love to make a game in the same vein.
Would you pay an extra 50 cents for one of those items?
No, see, that would kill it though. If you had the ability to buy those items, then you just kill the magic.
That's true. mean, the creator of Love, that MMO made by that one person, I forgot his name, Eskel or something. But he's basically the entire MMO that he created. It's dynamically generated entirely, so that should be interesting how that turns out. He probably did that because he's the only one working on the game. But
it's also a way to make a lot of content without having a lot of artists. I think he makes it so the users can actually make the environment as well. Like, it's dynamically generated initially, and then I believe, and I could be wrong, that the users can warp the terrain and actually create things, and then it stays there. That's another really cool thing too. Having user created environments. Like with Timefuck, I don't know if you guys know that that was one of the first games I did with online stuff. It had a level editor, and this is all stuff that William made because he had a background in like PHP programming and stuff like that, and he made the server and the database stuff, and basically it would send the levels out to his website, and then it would be hosted there. And I think it's been out for a month now, and we have like 6,000 levels submitted. And I did this thing where it was, of course, again, I'm flunky in the dynamically generated whatever else, and I made it so there's one of the options is enter the unknown, and if you click it, it simulates a game that ramps up in difficulty. And what it does is there's a rating system for all the levels, and there's shitloads of people playing right now, so that's really good for us. So all the levels get rated, and they get ranked in difficulty and fun factor. Now, when you enter the unknown, it grabs 33 levels, ranks them in difficulty, and only chooses ones that are ranked high in fun factor, and simulates a dynamic game so you can play indefinitely. And there are so many levels now that it's like you never play the same level twice. And I think experiences like that, where it's like that was a really simple idea, and it was easily done, and it makes for endless content. It's you can play the game forever. And it's just like I'm just throwing out examples of dynamically generated stuff in video games, and that's a really simple one that I think a lot of us could and should use the users to make content for us. If they're that compelled to play it, they'd be that compelled to make stuff for it and add more content to it.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for us not to.
And I bet you get some people playing those games for a very long period of time.
Of course.
Yeah, Little Big Planet, that's another perfect example of that. I mean, that was their whole model.
Yeah, that was a model.
Part of me, when I play Little Big Planet, makes me think like they've said like, "Here, you build the game." Like, man,
yeah, they basically did.
What did I pay my $70 for?
Yeah, but of course, with the problem you run into is that there really aren't that many really creative people out there in the world, and if there are, they're probably working, and they don't want to be working more when they're making games.
But I mean, also though, one thing with Little Big Planet is that everyone seemed to want to just do like homages to other things, that got in copyright problems.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they ran into that problem with what was Guitar Hero 4, I think, where they added the music store that you could make your own music, and everybody was just making MIDIs of existing content that was constantly be erased. So that's why they took it out of the new one. But yeah, of course.
This is a natural urge, I think. Like in music class at school, I used to do this. They'd be like, compose a ballad, and so I'd the ballad I'd compose would be a Cowboy Song by Thin Lizzy or whatever. and hoping that my music teacher hadn't heard it.
It's a natural way that people learn. They tend to copy first, and then once they copy, then they can start synthesizing those pieces together into a more original work. So it's typical that you'd see that. One of the things that we played with Bunny is we found that if you just give people an open world, then they tend to sort of grab stuff from their pop culture and bring it in. However, if you give them a world that's like, oh, it's a set world and there's characters and that sort of thing, then they'll do the equivalent of fan fiction, and they'll actually riff off the world that you've provided. I think we have like 6,000 or something posts in the role-playing section for Bunny, and people are just riffing their role-playing Bunny. And
it's all slash fiction, like Bunny on Captain Kirk.
Oh.
Well, not quite. But I think it's a slightly different audience than that. But they have battles between bunnies, and they simulate, hanging out at the inn together with their bunnies, and it's really quite intricate. But it's all sort of fan fiction within the world that you've created. So that's another.
Do you have anybody dressing up in bunny costumes and going to conventions?
Not yet. We're waiting
bunny
for that.
Costumes with holes in conspicuous places.
Furries, no.
So it turns out that there is furries, but there's a whole other group of people that like animals as well. Some of them even like own pets and that sort of thing. So
Oh dear.
we haven't even gotten that level yet.
Okay, so just to kind of wrap it up, I mean, what kind of stuff would you guys say to up and coming game designers? What would you tell them to kind of whether just starting out or what direction they should go with Flash or anything really? How about you, Dan? Can you start us out with that or?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think this is a basic one: is make games and finish them. Make a lot of them and finish a lot of them. I think that's hugely important. The world is changing. It's no longer just about being cool game maker guy. The game designer also designs the business model for their product. So you need to understand how you make money. You need to understand how you can distribute your game. That is a game design task. So when you're making your games, build this stuff in. If you want to make money. If you don't want to make money, that's okay too.
Definitely, that's good advice. How about you, Iain?
I'd say try and learn development and design, because it really helps a lot to know a bit about both.
Even though that is quite hard to do, though, but it is very good to learn.
I know,
both sides.
but it's a laudable goal. It's worth trying for.
Definitely,
You'll always be better at one thing than the other, but even if you really think that you can't draw, you'll be able to do something that's cool.
Yeah, that's good. Edmund, how about you?
Yeah, just persistence. Make as many games as you can. Start out really, really, really small. If you start out ambitious, you're not going to finish the game. Maybe start out in Game Maker if you have no experience at all. I mean, anybody can program in Game Maker. And then if games make the move to Flash and so on and so forth, try to make unique stuff. Try to stand out, and then understand the advantage you have over the mainstream. And not even when I was talking before about like the whole being provocative and whatever else. Like there's a lot of stuff in the mainstream they can't do when it comes to taking risks on design. When we were prototyping stuff for Gish and we had gotten in the IGF in 2004, publishers would come up to us and say there's no way we could publish this because this is not proven to sell. It doesn't control in the same way others would think that it would control. It's complicated. It's weird, and we can't touch this. And there are many designs that are innovative and weird and off and whatever else that I think that new developers can focus on and innovate from and really have an advantage over the mainstream. And then you will get ripped off by the mainstream if it does well. That will happen. But yeah, that's it. I just say persistence and learn from your mistakes. Realize you don't know it all. Try to be as humble as you can. And be honest with yourself, and that's about it.
All right, Ryan, this is it. Finish it off. It's got to be good, buddy.
Oh God! Let me reiterate what Dan and Ed said. You got to finish something. One phrase that I use all the time is "He who executes wins." Everybody's got ideas, and everybody's got a million of them. But it's the person who's able to actually finish something that can actually say, "I've got a game out that does this." So finish something. He who executes wins. Also, realize that a lot of your game is not the game itself, but it's the prompts and the dialogues and the title screen and the buttons and all the UI stuff. I'm spending a hell of a lot of time on that stuff beyond actually building the game. So I call it the front of house stuff. Make your front of house stuff look really good and realize that there's a real big time sink involved into getting that polish looking really good and making sure that everything reads well and the dialogues look good. And if all else fails, sell your body for money.
There you go. Well, thank you, gentlemen. This was quite an interesting experience. So I thank you all.
I love you, Dan Cook.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
See
for
ya.
organizing it.
Yeah, no problem. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
We monetized in Flash. This is my love letter to Flash. Everything is better with cash. Tell me how are we gonna make it last? We get some attention, but attention moves fast, yeah. I'm talking about retention. Fun, number one, are your players having fun? Are they having such a good time that their friends be wanting some, yeah? And can you make them wanna spread it? Get viral, Flash. This This is my love letter to Flash. Everything is better with cash. Let's monetize it, Flash. This is my love letter to Flash. Everything is better with cash. Let's monetize it. How? Tell me how. Tell me how long will you play? 'Cause we can keep you satisfied for hours every day. And once you begin it, you need more than 8 minutes to win it. I'll tell you now, the ads are not enough to put food on the table. We'll sell you virtual stuff. Do you wanna buy a flower, or maybe a waterfall, or a puppy? Some fireworks. What's that? A unicorn? We got vectors video, multi-channel audio, music built to make it glow. Everything is something more. Flash. And our player penetration is so deep. Our player penetration is so deep. 350 million players. That's a lot of players. Flash. This is my love letter to Flash. I'm thanking you for making me cash. We monetized in Flash. This is my love letter to Flash. I'm talking to Dolly Flash, yeah. Do you wanna buy a flower?